This is the January 27th Board of Education meeting. I am President Cynthia Elliott, the first meeting that I'm officially chairing, so I want to welcome the community and our partners. We've got a pretty hefty agenda this evening, and so we will try to move through it pretty quickly so that you're not watching this for hours on end, and I hope that my colleagues will support me in trying to move through this agenda. However, we do want to ensure, make sure that our colleagues are asking the questions that our community would want to hear. So with that said, welcome, and I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting to order, and the first order of the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Can I get Commissioner Patterson, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. And the next item on the agenda, I'm going to have our board community liaison to talk to us, to share and announce the upcoming board events. Ms. Travis?
Thank you. So we have our policy and CIGR committee meetings happening next week, Tuesday, February the 1st at 5:30. And then we'll be having a board work session on Thursday, February the 3rd at 5, and that will be held virtually. And then the next week after that, we have our ESA committee meeting that will be taking place on Tuesday, February the 8th at 5:30. And then the following week after that will be the Finance Committee meeting at 5:30. And then to end the month, we will be having our Black History Month observance, which will be happening on February the 17th at 4:30. And this will be held virtually because of all the wonderful scholars that will be part of this, similar to last year. And following that meeting on the same day will be our business meeting, which I want to highlight. This will also be virtual, and it will happen at 6:30, but it will be virtual just to avoid too much transitioning, so we can start on, at a timely fashion. And as always, if any speakers who wish to address the board, they can reach out via phone or email to be able to speak no later than noon the day of the meeting, and making sure that is on the topic that's being discussed. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is speakers addressing the Board of Education. And so I will start. Charisma, do you have the list and you can call?
Okay, so the first speaker is a student, Bushra Tahir. Bushra, okay, Bushra. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Bushra will be speaking on transportation. You have 3 minutes whenever you're ready to start.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Board of Education. I'm a student from RWCP. My name is Bushra Tahir, and I am a sophomore. I have the right to stand up for my friends, classmates, and my school. Transportation is important for everyone, including students of YWCP. When Rochester City School District said they might not provide transportation for students going to schools outside Rochester City School District, I was a bit mad because students won't be able to learn like they do in person and come to school. Parents just like you guys have work and can't drop off their students and pick them up every day. Bus transportation will help students learn better and do better at YWCP. So please keep our students' transportation to YWCP, and thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have another student on transportation, Nevaeh McClary. Is Nevaeh on? Nevaeh? Okay, we can move on and come back. There's another student, Isabella Robinson, also on the same topic? Isabella Robinson. Okay. Hi, Isabella, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. You have 3 minutes to start whenever you're ready.
I'm ready.
You can go ahead whenever you're ready to start.
Okay. My name is Isabella. I'm an 8th grader at Young Women's College Prep, better known as YWCP.
I'm sorry, Isabella, not to interrupt you, but can you speak up? We can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Transportation is very important to me. Without the buses, my mom would have to take 4 children to different schools and try to make it to work on time. It would be stressful for her having to do that every day. During the beginning of the year, I didn't ride the bus, and my mom would have to take my 2 siblings to school at 9 a.m. so she could take my sister and I to go to school first. She was tired every day and had to sleep the moment she got home from work. I don't want my mom to go through that stress again. Please continue to provide busing for YWCP.
Thank you. Next up, is Nevaeh? Did Nevaeh join us? No? Okay. So we'll move on to the next speaker, which is another student. Oh. No. Kathleen D. Paula Roca. I don't apologize for missaying your name. Is Kathleen there?
Hi. Miss Fox will translate for me.
Okay. No problem. So this student is speaking on proposed changes to RIA. So you have 3 minutes whenever you're ready. And we do have a translator for this student happening as well.
Ok, Kathleen, você tem 3 minutos. Pode começar.
Boa tarde a todos os comissionários. Meu nome é Kathleen, tenho 16 anos, sou do Brasil e estou nos Estados Unidos tem 5 meses.
Good evening to all the commissioners. My name is Kathleen. I'm 16 years old. I'm from Brazil, and I have been here in the United States for 5 months.
Antes de tudo, gostaria que vocês soubessem que estamos muito gratos por vocês nos ouvirem.
First of all, I would like you to know that we are very grateful to you for listening to us.
Bom, quando eu fui à procura de uma escola, eu não sabia nada de inglês, então me indicaram a RIA, porque lá iriam me ensinar a falar inglês durante 2 anos para que eu pudesse estar preparada para ir para outra escola.
So when I went to look for a school, I didn't speak much English, so they pointed me to RIA because it would be a school where they could teach me English for 2 years so that when I go to another school, I'll know more English.
E isso é muito bom, porque é muito difícil e ruim estar em um lugar que você não entende nada ou não sabe falar a língua do país.
And that was really great because it's really hard and horrible to be in a place where you don't speak the country's language.
E a RIA nos proporciona isso para nós que chegamos aqui e não sabemos nada do inglês.
And RIA offers this support to those of us who come here without knowing English.
Eu tenho certeza que daqui 2 anos vou estar muito melhor no inglês, porque os professores nos ajudam muito e estamos sempre unidos para aprender.
And I'm sure that in 2 years, I'm going to speak English so much better because the teachers are always there to help us a lot and we're always united to learn.
E o melhor de tudo é que não temos julgamentos ou brincadeiras de mau gosto da parte de outros alunos, porque estamos todos ali para aprender.
And the best part is that we don't ever make fun of each other or disrespect each other because we're all there together as one to learn.
And that's why I like it here so much.
Thank you, Kathleen. Obrigada, Kathleen. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So next up is Okler. I'm sorry if I say your name incorrectly. Are you there? No, in the room. Okay. Okler, can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you able to turn on your video?
Yeah, sure.
All right. You have 3 minutes whenever you're ready to start.
Hi, my name is Ulker. I'm from Afghanistan. I came to the United States and started at RIA 2 years ago. I learned all of my English and so much more at RIA. Teachers and students here were very helpful. I remember on the second day I came to school, I was so nervous and I dropped all of my pens and pencils on the floor and all of this sudden, other students in the class started helping me pick up them. This is a good school for kids from other countries because when we came from other country, we have to learn English first. It's too hard for us to do this in another school. Ria is very good at teaching new students to be able to learn English, how to pronounce words, how to read, and of course to also learn in other classes like history, math, science, and sports. When I came here, I saw that Ria had a lot of students. It was very peaceful and so slow. I would walk into the cafeteria. It was full of students. I want to go to Baghdad. My brother was in the school, but since the district closed down the kindergarten to sixth grade program, he had to go to another school and left his friends. And since then, he hasn't learned English as much as I have. Can you please make it that way again? Please don't take seventh and eighth grade away now. Please bring back all the kids to Ria. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have a parent, Felicia, who will be talking on transportation. Felicia? Okay.
Hello?
Hi, Felicia, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you called me. Yes, I can hear you.
Are you able to turn your video on?
Yes.
Okay. So you have 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay. So I want to thank everyone that's on the board, the Rochester City School District. I do have a lot of concerns about what's going on with our leadership. One, starting with transportation. I had a lot of issues with transportation this week in regards to my daughter getting to school. In the beginning, we transported her since September to allow other students to be able to get to and from school. Monday and Tuesday, we didn't get a bus at all to come get her. We finally were able to speak to someone, and she was able to get picked up on Wednesday, which was awesome. Her bus driver on Route 612 is amazing. He's been here on time and gets my daughter to school on time. My issue is with you are not understanding that the students in the city school district are still having quite a few issues with getting to school. I also have issues with the walkers. It's cold. It's super cold out. And how are they supposed to be getting to school now that we cut out being able to transport them? I'm not happy with the superintendent at all. I think that her main focus is to get the school district out of the red, which she may be doing, which is great, but I'm not happy with her leadership. I just think that we need to do better as a community. And parents, you don't have to stand for this. You vote for these people. They hired a superintendent. Start voting and getting these people out of here. Thank you. You all have a wonderful day or evening.
Thank you. Next up is Carly, who's a parent speaking on transportation. Carly, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Greetings, commissioners. Thank you for taking the time to hear our concerns. I'm here now speaking as a parent. Since the start of the new year, there have been so many transportation problems occurring regularly, and I wanted to just share a little bit about what's been happening, and also to note that prior to COVID, we had the best bus driver in the world. Mr. Chris never missed a day from kindergarten to fourth grade, my daughter's fourth grade. I wish he were still here. I don't know where he went. So the buses are coming to pick up kids late. Kids have to wait outside and sometimes alone in the dark, in the cold, and sometimes the buses are coming an hour or two late. and they just have to wait out in that cold. I can't even imagine. When the kids get to school late, it's extremely disruptive to the classroom. You all know all this. There's been so much turnover of the new drivers. They keep getting lost on the route. My daughter has had 4 bus drivers this year. And last week, the bus came an hour late twice. I was notified 10 minutes after her pickup time and hustled to be able to bring her to school, but then I arrived late to work at another school. I decided to speak tonight because this morning my daughter's bus actually sideswiped a car. They called me 3 times. I was teaching. They got all the kids are okay, but she did arrive to her school an hour and a half late. It's a very new bus driver. She's been late all week. There have been multiple days when buses arrive late to school for afternoon dismissals. Some buses have arrived at the school, like if a school dismisses at 2, they're arriving at 4, even though they're getting out at 2. And then families aren't always notified with a robocall about the buses being late either in the morning or in the afternoon, leaving parents and students wondering when or if the bus will come. I just wonder what else the district can be doing before the worst happens. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next up is Nita. Is Nita? Okay. I can. Okay. Kristen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, so Kristen is a staff member speaking on masking. You have 3 minutes whenever you're ready to start.
Yo. Hello. Before I go on the topic of masking, I have a few questions I'd like you to know regarding the test to stay policy that was introduced today. And one of them is, do students get tested repeatedly 5 to 10 days if they're exposed and not fully vaccinated? Or does testing just happen once? And for students that take a bus, how would they get to Wilson Foundation and then back home to get their bus to get to their home school? So those are 2 questions about that. Now into masking. From arrival to dismissal, staff spend many moments of their day saying, you need a mask, or mask up please, or give each other space. We do this because we know consistent and effective mask use and 3 feet of space keeps us all safer. Then for breakfast and lunch, we have students sit within inches of one another with their masks off and eating and talking. In the classroom hallways and even outside, we emphasize mask compliance, and then we have the students eat in a maskless, often poorly ventilated, crowded room. And this sends students mixed messages. Our students are trusting that their school leaders will keep them safe, yet the procedures we have in place give students reasons to be skeptical. We're asking our children to play the mental, emotional tug of war, questioning their safety. When the district leaders ignore the issue of the crowded cafeterias while simultaneously demand mask wearing and social distancing elsewhere, we are diminishing students' ability to understand how COVID-19 spreads. About 10% of classes seem to have a plan to socially distance students during mealtime, with most apparently being in pre-K. If this estimation is accurate, that means 90% of our students could be questioning their safety while eating on a daily basis. This is not only unsafe, it's disorienting to our students. So what can be done? Let's look at the plans of successful schools. Have half of the students rotate eating, spread out for 15 minutes while the other group has a recess or break. Use the care funds to pay family and community members a wage and transportation costs to come in and support this process. If district leaders continue to ignore the safety issues during meals, then it's assumed that either student safety is only sometimes important, or that being within 3 feet maskless while eating and talking is safe. If the latter is true, then I would like to invite district leaders to grab a cafeteria meal and sit for 30 minutes with students on a regular basis. Not only will this allow you to experience the taste of the food being offered to our students, it creates an opportunity for district leadership to be exposed directly to the impact of their decisions. With limited cafeteria staff available, this will also provide more supervision. There will also be no need for district leaders to leave promptly after mealtime because most likely the school could use an extra sub. So please make plans to space out our students out safely while eating, or show that it is safe by squeezing in and joining them. So thank you in advance for considering these options. And I'd like to give a huge shout out to the students. They did absolutely amazing and they're very inspiring. And thank you to the parents also that spoke up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we're gonna go back to Nita. Is Nita volume and everything? Can you hear me, Nita? Nita. No. All right, while we're waiting for Nita, we're gonna move on to Mary, who's actually in person. All right, you have 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, new commissioners. Congratulations, President Elliott and Vice President LeBron. And I want to start with thanking the commissioners that have visited RIA, and again, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron, Commissioner Simmons, and Commissioner Malloy. So I was not going to speak tonight because, as I hope many of you are aware of all the community forums, and I had the most people show up at those community forums. But unfortunately, today something happened that made me speak. And please know that the RIA community has been bold-faced lied to in the past, so I have to come. What kind of leader would I be if I didn't show up again? And in person, because my students are showing up in person, my staff is showing up in person, and all of you are showing up in person. So yesterday, a community member who was helping with the arrival of our newcomers came to me because she felt she needed to respectfully come to me to inform me that they would no longer be placing students in the Rochester City School District. In fact, they had just placed 3 students in a charter school. They told me that they had the love of RIA and the respect for me, but for the following reasons, they could not take a chance on RIA. The reasons? RIA does not have an elementary option, and there are not the supports needed in the regular elementary schools, no fault to my colleagues. In fact, the elementary students were forced to leave RIA, are still struggling. When the removal of the K-6 of RIA occurred in May 2020, I asked for a written plan. Where were the supports? I didn't receive one. I asked for another plan in 21-22. I didn't receive that plan either. There was no plan, so the struggle is real, and this agency knows it. Then they stated that the current proposal had too many changes to take a chance on RIA. The removal of more grades 7 and 8, and only for 1 year. Then they stated that the removal of RIA from the Jefferson campus there would no longer be a refugee community school for families. Then this. There has been no evidence that the current administration supports RIA or the RIA community that RIA serves. That one hit hard. Because of all the above, they are looking to charter schools, private schools, and for housing outside the Rochester City School District. Unfortunately, this sentiment from other agencies was clearly voiced in our community forums. I ask again, Superintendent Myers-Small, why? Why are we, the RCSD, not champions of our newcomer families who have faced so much trauma just to get to the United States? What is the harm of reinstating RIA to the award-winning status of a K-12 newcomer transitional program? If you, Superintendent Leslie Myers-Small, if you believed in RIA, if you supported RIA, if you fought for RIA, we would have RIA in its full extent. I just don't understand. It is not a violation of civil rights. Win back the community that supports the refugee, SIV, and immigrant families, especially with the projected influx. Stop pushing them out of our district because the charter schools are ready, willing, and prepared to support them. To the board members that have voiced their opposition to RIA proposals, thank you. The community thanks you. The community hears you. We can win them back. We may not be able to win back the families and the staff that have left our district since the destruction of RIA, but we have to, and we can do better, and it will start with this board. Please continue to say no to the RIA proposal and also consider supporting the reinstatement of the K-12 RIA program that was one of our district's most decorated and successful programs before it was destroyed. Asante Sama, namaste. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Choji. Is Choji? Yes.
Koji?
Choji.
Yes.
I apologize. You have 3 minutes. Whenever you're ready, this is the community member also speaking on RIA.
Good afternoon, good evening. My message, good evening tonight once again. In my heart of heart, I want to know why the thesaurus, it's a Hebrew word. Why talk about moving RIA to a new location? The thought of losing RIA has unmoored me, the students who attend RIA, and their families. We obviously see the world from totally different angles. As the Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai writes, Hebrew writing and Arabic writing go from east to west, Latin writing from west to east. I will paraphrase the next lines by saying, languages and pedagogies are like cats. You must not stroke their hair the wrong way. So now, when I stand disenchanted, I search for the light and the inspiration in our students who, like my own family, arrived here weary and exhausted, craving for peace. Dare I ask you then, how you can refuse them a space of their own, space where they could safely and quietly voice what has chained them to a world of darkness and instability? Should we, as caring adults, not offer our newly arrived Americans a space where we could encourage them with hope, education, and connectedness? Should we not give them a space where they could find their vision for a safe learning community while crafting their own learning? Belief in hope comes with security. The change that you wish to implement is another form of forced displacement and insecurity. What we need to do is to ensure the protection of our students' fragile sensibilities. This unknown road that lies ahead for our newly arrived students will force them to crash down inside themselves without anyone noticing. They have known the art of struggle, the meaning of strandedness. They also know the desire for peace. Our students deserve a space to call home. They need a place to grow, a safe place to learn. You can save the day. Please do not ignore our voices. Let RIA be RIA. I didn't kiss the ground, and this is a poem, when they brought me here as a little child to this land. But now that I have grown upon her, she kisses me, she holds me, she clutches me in love, in grass and thorns, in sand and stone, in wars and in spring, till the final kiss. Thank you for caring.
Thank you. We're going to go back to Anita again. Anita, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you turn on your video for us?
Sure, absolutely. All right.
All right, you have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes whenever you're ready, and this parent is talking on transportation.
Okay. I want to say thank you, the commissioner. Thank you, Superintendent Myers, for allowing me to speak. I'm going to be very brief. I've been using, I have a child. We've been going to private parochial school since kindergarten. This is our 12th grade. And I just wanted to say, I understand the conundrum the district is in and the challenge. You have a rash of retirement, you have COVID. And so I get the difficulty the district is in. But for single parents like myself, living in this city, working three jobs, I'm actually working 2 jobs. Without transportation, it's almost impossible for me to get my child to school and for me to be at work on time. And I get where the district is going. All I'm saying is, please look at our option. We all make the fabric of the city. We make the economy. Me being able to go to work, I contribute to the Rochester economy where the city school district sits in. Me being here contributes to the life, the richness of the school district. So as you go through and look at it, at least if you are going to take transportation away, can you make it at the end of the year so parents like myself could figure out what we need to do? So, I mean, that's what I just want to say. As you go, look at your strategic plans. And I realize the challenge you are in. Nobody's doubted that. But even if you're going to make the decision, can you not make it in the middle of the year and at least do it at the end of the school year to give parents like myself enough chance to figure out our transportation needs? And that's all I want to say. And I want to thank you. And I've had wonderful bus drivers throughout every year. So thanks very much. And I hope you look at this perspective as you make your decision based on labor shortages. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Alyssa, who's a community member, and the topic is on RIA. Alyssa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Are you able to turn your video on?
I am. Thank you.
All right, you have 3 minutes, and whenever you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Elisa Hathaway. I'm the director of Project Stronger at Mount Hope Family Center, a member of the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. The Rochester City School District's mission of fostering students' individual talents and abilities in a nurturing environment of equity requires addressing a range of distinct needs. The refugee and immigrant students in RCSD require attention to their stressors associated with trauma, isolation, acculturation, and resettlement, in addition to the educational needs of newcomers and English language learners. RIA has specialized expertise in these areas. RIA has cultivated a climate where students feel welcomed and appreciated while recognizing their unique needs as well. Mount Hope has partnered with RIA for the past few years to address traumatic stress and mental health needs for this group of students. The numbers of children coming to Rochester from Afghanistan and other war-torn countries is growing, and RCSD needs to plan for the expanding needs, not reducing capacity. RIA understands the layers of cultural, linguistic, educational, and mental health supports needed to foster success as children navigate their migration journeys. RIA's teachers and administrators have experience with these unique needs of refugee students and families, and along with interpreters and cultural brokers, create something truly special at RIA. The funders who awarded a $2.5 million grant for establishing a refugee educational welcome center to be located per the grant on the Jefferson campus in a neighborhood that is populated with large numbers of refugee families recognize the excellence and specialized capabilities of RIA to meet the needs of these students and families. Creating a structure with more transitions and more separations of sibling groups by reducing the number of grades served by RIA, and out of the neighborhood where families see RIA as a source of many resources, does not address the needs of students who have already undergone extreme life changes and for families who have endured unspeakable horrors. I implore you to reconsider the proposed changes to RIA. Please retain the outstanding high quality of the current RIA location on the Jefferson campus. Restore RIA to a K-12 program and allow students to stay for up to 2 years. You have an opportunity to keep families together. You have an opportunity to not re-traumatize refugee students and their families. It is essential you restore and maintain the Rochester International Academy, which is another home for refugee children and families. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Victoria. Victoria, can you hear me? Okay. Victoria, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. So Victoria is a community member speaking on RIA. You have 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Victoria Mangino. I am a therapist at Mount Hope Family Center. My role is to build relationships with the students and families at RIA to help them address the impact of trauma. This has allowed me to witness firsthand that RIA is necessary to providing access to equitable education and wraparound services to support the refugee population. Oftentimes, mental health is stigmatized and distrusted due to language barriers, different cultural priorities, religious beliefs, and other safety and coping related protective factors. Statistically, refugees are 10 times more likely to experience trauma and 3 times more likely to experience mental health challenges compared to native-born populations. These traumas happen both pre and post-migration, meaning these traumas happen in their home countries, in refugee camps, on their journey to resettlement, and here in the United States. We as a community or as a board member do not have the ability to influence every part of this journey, but we can have a meaningful, positive impact once these families are here in our community by reinstating RIA as a K-12. Try to imagine a life with so much trauma, loss, and instability. The loss of your home, separation from family, change in culture, death, torture, physical abuse, sexual assault, poverty, and more. Imagine having so little control through all of those steps. That is so much trauma for one family system to hold. One way that we can help ease this pressure is by not continuing to separate families into schools across the district. This means keeping RIA at the current location in a community that is familiar to the families. This means reinstating RIA as a K-12 program so siblings are not spread throughout different campuses across the city. Since I have been at RIA, the students have been surprisingly open to discussing their emotions and starting to process their trauma. I attribute 100% of this openness to the safety that the RIA staff has created for their students. Students walk through the door and immediately feel supported, valued, and respected. When students and families are feeling like a part of a community again, when they regain even a small sense of control, this only helps to promote healing. Thank you for those of you who have already visited RIA, and I continue to encourage those of you who haven't, please visit RIA. Spend a full day there to see how RIA goes above and beyond to support these students. The board would be doing a disservice to the newcomer population if they do not do the one thing that the board has in their control. Reinstate RIA as a K-12 program, continue to say no to the restructuring proposal, and keeping RIA at the Jefferson campus. Don't ignore the voices of this community. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next up, we have Dr. Mira. Is Dr. Mira on? Okay. Dr. Mira, can you hear me? Dr. Mira, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Dr. Mira is a community member speaking on RIA. You have 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, and thank you to the members of the RCST board for giving me the time and opportunity today to share with you some of my experiences and impressions about RIA. Professionally, very quickly, I am the Associate Dean for Research at Binghamton University. Prior to that, I was Associate Vice Chancellor for Research at the SUNY system in Albany. And before that, I was with Xerox for over 22 years. My last role there was as Vice President of Innovation. Our family has lived in the Rochester area for over 26 years now. And we have such an affinity and affection for this community that though I have had positions across the state of New York and outside the US, we never left Rochester. I have been on the RIA advisory board for over 5 years now. And during this time, both as a board member and as a volunteer, I have interacted very closely with the students, the faculty, and the leadership team at RIA, inside and outside the classroom, within and outside the school. I have had the pleasure of working with so many different organizations across the globe, but I must say that I have not come across an institution like RIA that is so good at what it does in its core education mission, that is so outstanding in the service it provides to the student and the families, that is so well run, while consistently, and this is the part I would like to emphasize, consistently meeting and exceeding all of the metrics it is expected to deliver on. As an organizational leader and administrator myself, I ask myself, how many organizations have I come across that, like RIA, meet all of its operational metrics, but also touch so many hearts in so many ways? This is what makes me so impressed and so proud of RIA. I think it's not just what RIA does, it is how they do it. RIA teachers not only teach the children, they fully understand and appreciate the unique challenges and needs of every single student and give them the personalized education and support that sets them up for success much beyond RIA. all of us in the education business know just how critical but how elusive the goal of personalized individual education can be. I have personally observed how RIA's teachers support not just the education, but the total development of the children, preparing them to be excellent citizens who will not only take care of themselves, but will give back to the community that has welcomed them and given them a home. You would have heard from some of RIA's finest students in previous hearings, I'm sure. And lastly, this is the most important point that I want to be sure to bring up here. Nowadays, I find myself so often in meetings where we should be discussing academic programs and research strategy, but we find ourselves talking about mental health issues and emotional well-being. We continue to live in very, very difficult times. And if we do not have institutions like RIA that so naturally, so routinely take care of not just the intellectual needs, but the emotional and mental health and well-being of its students, particularly to a very vulnerable population that we have chosen to
Dr.
make as part
Sampath, I'm going to have to stop you at this moment.
we will not be giving these children and their families a big disservice for ourselves in the long run.
Dr.
So I
Sampath?
respectfully, I'm done. I respectfully request you to reconsider the changes to RIA that you're being debated. And I very sincerely request you to reconsider
Dr. Sampath, I'm
restoring
going to have to
RIA
stop
back
you.
to the whole program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And then we have Jennifer. Is Jennifer on? Jennifer will be speaking on, she's also a community member speaking on RIA. Jennifer, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you show your video, please? Okay. You have 3 minutes whenever you're ready.
And let me just say 3 minutes. The other person exceeded the 3 minutes, and I'm going to ask our video people to cut it off at 3 minutes if you don't stop at 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, we can hear you. You can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. To close your eyes will not ease another's pain. That's a Chinese proverb. I just want everybody to take a minute to let that soak in. To close your eyes will not ease another's pain. Closing your eyes to what this district has done to the RIA community will not ease the pain of any of the RIA community itself. Hello, my name is Jennifer Grimes, and I am a former RCSD employee. When I started my professional career in the RCSD 12 years ago, I had one plan, and that was to dedicate my entire career to this district. Now, fast forward to my previous statement. Hello, my name is Jennifer Grimes, and I am a former RCSD employee. I dedicated 12 years of my life to this district and to this community, to the RIA community, to our students. I ate dinner with our families, and our families ate dinner with my family in my home and their homes. I took students into my home when they had nowhere else to go. My life was my work, and my work was my life. Whether you agree with my all-in approach or not, it was my truth, and it was what I lived. It was what I chose and what I dedicated myself to. RIA was targeted, and I say targeted, a few years ago, and because of this, last year I was displaced to a new building. I do want to be clear about one thing. I was devastated to leave RIA, but I personally have enough integrity that I still worked as hard as I could in my new home. I love working with all kids and all families, period. But to be faced with the reality that a district that I had dedicated so much took zero time and consideration into finding me a new home was extremely hurtful. I wasn't angry, I was just hurt. I thought after everything that I had given to this district, they could at least spend time finding an appropriate next chapter for me, but they didn't. Since RIA has been completely decimated over the last 2 years, about 30 staff members, including myself, have been displaced. At this point tonight, at least 12 of them have gone on to leave the Rochester City School District. All of them were highly effective, and not just according to a rubric, but highly effective in being good humans who extend themselves well beyond what the workday and the workload asked or required. My point, how does this happen? How do we even get to this point? How does an award-winning program that was honored, recognized, highlighted, and visited by international organizations, schools and groups fall so quickly? How does it go from all in to nothing so abruptly? I have no idea, but I think that this board should seriously be asking themselves some of these important questions. Who is following up with all the students who were forced to leave RIA earlier than they anticipated? How are the students doing? What are their grades like? Were their teachers and new school communities prepared to receive them? How do the families feel? Are their needs being met? Do they feel included, welcomed, celebrated? These are all things that leaders promise to have in place. My question to you is, are they? Is this district really interested in doing what is best for all students? Are we really aspiring to be equitable or just equal? Why are leaders making decisions about
Ms. Grimes, I'm going to have you to stop. Okay. All right.
All right, so that was our last speaker. We also had 10 other parents, students submit comments on transportation. So we're all set, President Elliott.
About that, because you said 10, but I have 94 comments that were submitted for transportation. Is it 10 or is it 94? Thank you. I just want to correct that.
I'm sorry.
On record. It's okay. I just
Yeah.
want the record to be accurately reflective of the number of parents and students who are advocating around transportation. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Student Advisory Council. I don't know if we have Anaya with us this evening to give us the Student Advisory Council report. All right, Anaya, welcome. Good evening.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Anaya Simmons, and I am the president of the Student Leadership Congress. And this is the official report for the Student Leadership Congress's latest meeting on December 22nd and January 23rd of 2021 and 2022. On our agenda, we had introductions, and then I'll give a brief overview of our December meeting. For the agenda of our January meeting, we had equity involving COVID and remote learning, lack of resources, extracurriculars, and violence prevention. At these meetings, we had representatives from Wilson Magnet, Monroe, Northeast College, SOTA, Rochester Early College, and World of Inquiry High School in attendance. I would like to point out that the attendance was in high numbers for these schools, but is not properly diverse enough to represent the district. Voices from student leaders at Edison, East, and schools hosted in the Franklin building, to name a few, are needed. I deeply ask you to spread the word around SLC's purpose and the need for more student leaders to have all perspectives represented. In this month's conversation around equity, we looked at what it means to be an RCSD student. We explored equity within COVID, remote learning, lack of resources, and extracurricular opportunities. With the focus of remote learning, students feel upset with the district's hurried announcement to switch to virtual learning and the decisions about in-person learning. Students express they feel left out of decision-making, both small on a school-to-school basis and within the larger district-wide decisions, such as the return to school. Many students feel that there should be a forum or community event to express and participate in decision-making, especially around COVID protocols. With the idea of virtual learning still being a possibility and a group of students staying home even after the chance to return to school, students feel that there should be a remote or hybrid option available. However, students don't feel like their administrators, school bodies, or district technology is sufficient to support online learning at this time. Students often complain about the district-wide technology such as Chromebooks taking long periods of time to work properly and feel the need to invest in their own. Due to this, students have invested in their own technology such as laptops and iPads that are now not connecting to the school's internet. Administrators have informed students this is a district decision, but students across the district have asked for more clarification on what this means for technology in the RCSD. Academically, students feel deprived of resources. Students communicated that when looking for an academic challenge, many schools are lacking AP and dual credit options. While some students have reported taking the classes virtually through the district, they have explained it is hard to follow at times and lacks the instruction and support that in-person classes have. Students have also announced their feelings of discouragement when it comes to being academically challenged. They feel there is such a lack of AP and dual credit courses in the RCSD in person specifically because it is not expected that students within this district are capable of performing well in these type of classes. With many private and suburban schools having low teacher-to-student ratios and almost individualized support for financial aid and other next step opportunities, RCSC students feel the same support has not been given. The Congress acknowledges and appreciates the support that the district has been doing, such as the virtual FAFSA fairs, but feels these opportunities are not properly publicized to maximize its value. Schools in extremely urban settings, such as School of the Arts, have little to no green space on their campus. Students feel deprived of a normal opportunity such as homecoming or their own sports teams because of lack of space in their surroundings. And with the rise of COVID, students feel like even more social activities will be missed. Continuing in terms of sports, students feel that extracurricular opportunities get more attention than others, especially those that are not common to minorities. Sports such as swimming or tennis have suffered to find proper equipment and even spaces to practice, which many students feel is contributing to the lack of representation in white-dominated activities. This goes even further than sports and even applies to extracurriculars such as chess and art programs that many schools besides SOTA don't have. Students also express that there is not enough physical space in schools, like World of Inquiry and Rochester Early College. They've expressed to express themselves within their new identities growing into high schoolers and young adults. Around elementary students, they feel that this is taking a toll on their mental health to put on a facade of what it means to be a young adult. While this sentiment resonates with many students in extremely urban setting and smaller scaled schools, others on the call express they feel satisfied with the opportunities that their school provides for them. During this meeting, the Congress's attention was brought to the violence that has been plaguing our city. In terms of violence prevention, students feel that startups like the FIRE Initiative and even just opening the cafe at Franklin can help students feel more supported at this time. The Congress agreed that investing and prioritizing extracurriculars to suit more than one kind of student is necessary to help students stay away from the danger outside of schools, as well as improving the support and counseling services available to students who have been affected by any sort of violence. During the December meeting, the Leadership Congress met with Superintendent Myers-Smalls, and she was able to give a district-wide update. Superintendent explained that due to the rise of COVID numbers, students should be skeptical of remote learning if ordered by the state. She explained that the governor or the district, in collaboration with the county health department, could call for the switch to remote learning. Superintendent also announced that the RCSD has received $500 billion for school improvements and upgrades. The district, with the help of in collaboration with faith-based organizations and community groups, have received and distributed food donations and winter coats to over 1,200 families. The superintendent mentioned the new FIRE initiative, which brings fathers and men to support students. Finally, the superintendent concluded with the leaving of Dr. Green, President White, and Commissioner Clark with a service to the RCSD, and welcomed Commissioner Simmons and Patterson to the Board of Education. After the forum was a Q&A with the superintendent about the modernization of schools and where specific funding like transportation will go if switched to virtual learning. As I conclude my report, I would like to ask a few questions for anyone to answer. It is my understanding that the district has a standard of how much a test score can weigh into a student's grade per marking period. In the face of the pandemic, regents and midterms have been canceled in the past. Will there be a de-emphasizing in the storing of test grades per marking period within the RCSD? My final question regards technology. Will students who bring personal devices to school be unable to use district Wi-Fi and then must switch to school-issued devices?
We will get those questions answered and get those responses to you, Anaya.
Thank you. At this time, I have no response, no comment on any of the board resolutions. On behalf of the students, thank you.
Thank you, Anaya. Have a good evening. The next report is from our Parent Leadership Advisory Council.
Good evening, Board. My name is April Harrison. I am the Vice President of the Parent Leadership Advisory Council. And I have the plaque report. The start of 2022 has come with a lot of anxiety. On January 3rd, in place of the Black Leadership meeting, parents from across the district met in a parent forum to discuss how we would like to see the district respond to the COVID spike. We also put out a short survey for parents with over 400 responses in 48 hours, representing every school building district-wide. These were submitted to the Board of Education and the Superintendent's Office on January 4th. There were many consensus points among parents, including, but not limited to, 79% of parents said that they would be able to support a short-term remote learning option for their families with notice and time to plan. Attendance for children staying home with symptoms or in quarantine should not be marked as unexcused. Students and families who have symptoms, underlying health concerns, and in quarantine should have a standard remote option to earn credit and stay involved in their school days. Social and emotional time with peers, staff, and teachers is the most important aspect of any remote learning environment, and the health and wellness of our students and the people they see every day is most important, and we ask that the district remember this in every decision they make. On the evening of Tuesday, January 4th, the Board of Education Committee of the Whole had multiple board members requesting that if remote learning was going to happen, that the decision be made that night. The decision to go remote wasn't announced until Wednesday afternoon, with no child care options offered for remote to begin immediately on Thursday, with a hopeful return to the following week. Parents across the district were left to scramble and hope that one of the many backup plans we've all come up with over the last 2 years would just work out. We ask that parents be welcomed into these conversations as they're happening so that we can help our fellow parents know as soon as possible and work together on solutions that events like the January Executive School-Based Planning Team meeting not be canceled, especially when such big events are happening. So we were disappointed that the City of Rochester didn't offer solutions for these parents and that there were no school buildings that could support. As half of the schools reopened the following week, health concerns became a huge concern. So on that Saturday, January 15th, PLAC hosted a parent medical meetup with a number of medical professionals who have been working with the district to discuss parent concerns and answer questions. They gave an update on where the county is at and the city, and suggestions on keeping everyone safe included wearing high-quality KN95 masks, consistent social distancing with regular testing, and parents had several questions. They continue to struggle with the how of access, affordability, and consistency with these measures and what the district is able and willing to provide to keep everyone safe. While we appreciate the withdrawal of one of the closures and merger plans and the public statements by board members that they will not vote for the proposals, it is disappointing that at the conclusion of the work session last week, for the first time, was an ask of what the public and parents think should be done. We would ask that next year, when the proposal is being created for mergers and closures, that parents, faculty, staff, and students be involved in the conversation and not as an afterthought. This month, parents met twice to review the draft version of Policy 1900, and next Monday evening, Commissioner Powell will be joining us to review and discuss, and we do look forward to that collaboration. As the district-wide parent group for our CSD, we wanted to take this opportunity to reiterate the massive loss of the Director for the Office of Parent Engagement, Ms. Khadijah Muhammad. She supplied resources and streamlined issues alongside Ms. Kelly Briggs, who at this time has a lot on her plate. So at this time, PLAC has not been made aware of the process or potential hires for either the new director for the Office of Parent Engagement or the open Chief of Schools position. We will be making a formal request to Dr. Miller to be included in that timeline and hiring process. Thank you for the time and space to share. Please forward all questions, comments, or concerns to plac@rcsdk12.org. Thank you.
Thank you. The next report is the Bilingual Education Council report. I think they're coming.
Did we let the parents in?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Hello, Parent Bilingual Council. Can we get your report, please?
Cynthia, okay, that was the best.
Ah, buenas noches. Good evening.
Good evening.
Ok, sí, pueden verme. Buenas noches a todos.
Good evening to everybody.
Voy a comenzar, Rafael. Buenas noches, soy Divet García, vicepresidenta del Concilio de Educación Bilingüe.
My name is
Estoy
David
aquí con el
Garcia,
resto.
and I'm Vice President of the Bilingual Council.
Estoy aquí con el resto de los oficiales del BC.
And I'm here with all the other officers from the BEC.
El Concilio de Educación Bilingüe está formado por padres bilingües, organizaciones comunitarias y educadores.
The Bilingual Council is made up of parents and a partnership with organizations
Que representan y defienden los derechos educativos a una educación bilingüe.
that represent and all the rights of bilingual education.
De calidad para nuestros estudiantes en el distrito.
Quality education for our students in the district.
Los siguientes elementos en los que seguimos trabajando
The following items that we're working on.
continuamos trabajando en el departamento bilingüe para asegurar un aprendiz del idioma inglés.
We continue to work with the bilingual department and with the English language learners.
De cada escuela secundaria que alberga el programa de educación bilingüe.
In each of the schools that house the bilingual programs.
Todavía estamos trabajando para identificar a qué representantes de padres del concilio bilingüe se les asignarán los 2 puestos en el consejo.
We're still trying to identify the schools that have the parent representatives for the bilingual council.
El Consejo Asesor de Liderazgo de Padres, PLAC, y el Consejo Asesor de Padres de Educación Especial, CPAC.
And we're also working with the PLAC and CPAC.
Hemos experimentado barreras en torno al acceso al idioma con todos los grupos de padres y reuniones del distrito que no tienen intérpretes disponibles.
We've experienced some barriers in terms of language barriers, especially with the meetings where there's no interpreters.
Esto es motivo de gran preocupación, ya que limita la capacidad del concilio para recibir información crítica, participar activamente en debates y expresar de manera proactiva las necesidades de aquellos a quienes representan.
Critical to us because it's a concern because that's the way we represent our parents, and we can be advocates for the bilingual parents.
También nos gustaría señalar que no hemos oído hablar de los próximos pasos para la contratación y reincorporación del director ejecutivo.
And we'd like some information about the process of selection for the executive director.
Y esperamos participar en el proceso de contratación.
And we hope to participate in the process.
La reunión del Concilio de Educación Bilingüe de enero fue
The The January Bilingual Council meeting
fue nuestra celebración anual del Día de los Reyes Magos.
was our celebration of the Three Kings.
Tuvo lugar el 4 de enero del 2022 en la 777 Clifford Avenue.
It was January 4th, 77 Clifford Avenue.
Tuvimos un sorteo de obsequios para las familias del distrito
We had a raffle and gifts for district families.
y entregamos más de 300 obsequios y 100 tarjetas de obsequio de $20.
And we also gave out 300 gifts and also, ¿cuántas tarjetas?
100 tarjetas.
And 100 gift cards, $20 gift cards.
Y más de 100 juegos de bufandas, guantes y gorros de invierno.
And more than 100 sets of gloves, winter gloves, hats, and scarves.
El evento fue muy exitoso y mantuvimos todos los requisitos del distanciamiento social.
It was a great event, and we also had social distancing measures in place.
Nos reunimos con el Dr. Black el 6 de enero
On January 6th, we met with Dr. Black
para revisar la pregunta escrita del Board of Education y la administración.
to review some of the questions from the Board of Education and the administration.
Hemos finalizado los estatutos y pedimos que se aprueben los estatutos.
So we're done with the bylaws, reviewing the bylaws, and we'd like to have them approved.
Estas son las aclaraciones finales, cambios y modificaciones realizadas.
These are some of the modifications made to the bylaws.
Artículo 2A.5. Este artículo fue aclarado y se mantendrá igual.
Item 2, item A2 was reviewed and it's going to stay in place.
El distrito compartirá los resultados de las herramientas de evaluación administrativa por el distrito escolar.
The district will share the evaluation or the results of the evaluation
para evaluar los programas bilingües anualmente.
of the bilingual programs annually.
El Concilio de Educación Bilingüe ha acordado mantener la confidencialidad principal de cualquier información no publicada compartida.
And BEC has agreed to keep the confidential nature of all the information that has been shared to them.
El artículo 2A.7, este artículo ha sido modificado para establecer lo siguiente.
And Article 2, 7 has been modified to say the following.
Participación en el Consejo Asesor de Liderazgo de Padres, PLAC, y el Comité Asesor de Padres de Educación Especial, CPAC, y otras reuniones del distrito.
We're going to be participating, we're going to be part of the meetings for PLAC and CPAC.
El distrito brindará servicios de interpretación a los representantes de padres del BCE que participen en todas las reuniones de participación de padres y del distrito.
The district will provide interpretation services for BEC members that attend all the parent meetings in the district.
El artículo 2A.8, este artículo ha sido actualizado para incluir una declaración de confidencialidad.
And Article 2A8 has included confidentiality declaration.
El artículo 3A.2 y A.3 se ha actualizado para incluir los nombres propios de las escuelas.
Article 3 has been modified to name the schools, the specific schools.
Mantenemos un estrecho contacto con el departamento bilingüe para garantizar que nuestras familias reciban la información más actualizada sobre el cierre de las escuelas.
We've been in close contact with the bilingual department to share with our families any information about school closures.
Hubo algunas preocupaciones con la distribución de kits de pruebas de COVID.
We had some concerns with the distribution of the test kits for COVID,
ya que algunas escuelas no enviaron las instrucciones en español.
due to the fact that some schools didn't send the instructions in Spanish.
Además, los padres continúan experimentando problemas con la transportación.
Also, we've had parents voice their concerns about transportation.
El Concilio de Educación Bilingüe se pregunta cuál es el índice de asistencia de los estudiantes.
The bilingual council has a concern and is asking a question as to what is the rate of absence in the district for students.
Los padres informan que tienen que usar Uber, caminar largas distancias o simplemente faltar a la escuela porque no pueden llevar a los estudiantes allí.
The parents have been sharing with us that they've had to use different transportation services like Uber, or they have to walk long distances or just stay home and be absent from school because of transportation problems.
Los padres informan que cuando se comunican con el Departamento de Transportación no son muy receptivos.
And parents have been sharing with us that when we go to contact the transportation department, they haven't been very receptive to the concerns.
Está previsto que la presidenta Elliott asista a nuestra próxima reunión virtual del Concilio de Educación Bilingüe.
We're expecting President Elliott to be at our next BEC meeting.
El 8 de febrero a las 5 de la tarde.
February 8th at 5 o'clock.
Estamos ansiosos por relacionarnos con ella.
We're very anxious to see her there.
Con esto concluye nuestro informe de actividades. Muchas gracias y tengan muy buenas noches.
Just one thing I would say, let me just also say, make sure you spell my name correctly. It's E-L-L-I-O-T-T. Please spell my name correctly.
Que por favor deletreen el apellido de la presidenta.
Thank you. I want my T. Thank you.
Okay.
Gracias.
And I'm looking forward to participating via Zoom at the bilingual meeting. Thank you for having me. And the next item on the agenda is our board reports, and we're going to get our board report from our new chair of the ESA committee, Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, President Elliott. Is it okay if I summarize this as I read through it a little bit? Just
say, I'm sorry.
I want to summarize this a little bit.
Sure,
It looks like it's a little lengthy.
Because it is on board docs, and so people can
Yeah, I'm learning that I can edit it, so I'll be doing that next time.
Sure.
But for this evening's purposes, thank you so much, President Elliott. This is for the chair, the Equity and Student Achievement Committee. We met as a committee of the whole on Tuesday, January 11th, and the notes proceed as such. There were 67 comments submitted to the record on transportation and school closure. The board considered several human capital resolutions related to the appointment of individuals to the district positions, permanent appointments, resignations, and suspension appeal resolutions. This month, the school spotlight was All City High School, where Principal Armando Ramirez provided information around the functions and success of the school. He talked about human capital, as being the key to success of the school, and provided background of all City High School, including a snapshot of the program and their scholars. He also provided graduation data for the past 3 years. Mr. Ramirez talked about maximizing partnerships and helping with supporting students and how these supports helped to leverage Joseph C. Wilson Magnet High School's graduation rates. The Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, Kathleen Black, provided updates on the district's academics. Dr. Black reminded the board of the 3 guiding principles for the district, detailing an academic overview, including updates on curriculum, instructional highlights, and assessment completion information for the district. In addition, Dr. Black provided updates on the district's professional development efforts. And finally, Dr. Black provided next steps with the district's academics. The Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, again, Dr. Kathleen Black, provided the district's data update on Part 2 of the iReady data. Dr. Black provided an overview of the process of developing a comprehensive assessment plan and strategy and how this will support the district. There was an overview and data information for iReady that was provided for the kindergarten through 8th grade students in mathematics and ELA. We also received an overview of next steps to positively impact the students' learning and increase the academic performance data shared. The Chief of Special Education and Specialized Programs, Desiree Richmond, provided a special education update on the data with the numbers of students with disabilities in the district. Ms. Richmond also provided data for 4 years of, provided data for 4 year students with disabilities based on location type, meaning district agencies and charter non-public schools. This was considered in classification type and ethnicity race. In addition, Ms. Richmond provided data for the past 3 school years and this current school year in relation to the number of meetings or amendments, initial referrals and outcomes, and information on the manifestation determination meetings. Furthermore, Ms. Richmond produced highlights in special education around the consent decree, benchmarks achieved, and corrective action plan. Finally, Ms. Richmond presented the plan to move forward with special education. Lastly, Superintendent Dr. Myers-Small provided an update on remote learning with students returning back from the holiday break. The next ESA committee meeting will be on Tuesday, February 8th at 5:30.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Vice President LeBron, I'm going to have you to review, discuss the review and consideration of the December 2021 financial report and the 2021-22 second quarter quarterly change order report.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, President Elliott. I'm actually going to call Carlene up, and just as a reminder, the Finance Committee of the Whole does not meet every month. We do meet every other month now. However, we are still required to get a finance packet and understand and read those numbers, and so we are still going to have our CFO present at our board business meetings and take questions here in lieu of a full Finance Committee of the Whole. CFO Pierce.
Thank you. Good evening, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron, Commissioners, Dr. Jallo, Superintendents. It's an absolute honor to be here this evening and a privilege to serve the children of RCSD. I know Kalia is working behind the scenes to help me out with my presentation, so I think it's going to be projected. It is. Okay, great. So, Kalia, if you could just go down to the next slide, please, the next page. Thank you. There you go. Okay. So again, we are starting with our cash flow report. And when you take a look at the report year over year, you're going to see that we do have an increase in the amount of total receipts and deposits for the month of December. And that is up by $9.1 million. You're also going to see that our expenditures month over month year over year is actually greater than where we were last year by $13 million. And again, that's no surprise to us because we were in a remote environment at that time. And now that we're back in person, obviously those expenditures have increased. bottom line here, overall, our cash flow position remains very strong, and it reinforces the fact that if we do indeed establish a culture of disciplined spending and purposeful thinking in our spending, we will be making progress in attaining a more solid fiscal foundation. We do need to keep in mind, though, that right now at this point in time, within the general fund, we still have a structural deficit, and we need to always remain mindful of that. In the next slide, we actually are going to be looking again at the visual graph. And in doing so, this is actually going to be the highlight of my presentation this evening because of the fact that we've been looking at that week of March 11th. We've been saying that repetitively, report after report, month after month. And what I'd like to report to you this evening is that we can take somewhat of a sigh of relief in that that balance on that week went from $2 million in liquid cash, we're now up to $9 million. And the reason for that improvement, the drastic improvement, is due to the fact that it's of the efforts of our grants management team under the leadership of Director Glendine Miller. Glendine proactively submitted our paperwork for reimbursement, and we also have to give credit to Commissioner Rosa and her CFO, the lead on her financial team, Phyllis Morris, who expedited the reimbursement to go through. They had made a promise to us that that would be the arrangement we would have, knowing our cash flow consideration. They absolutely upheld their promise, and in all absolute fact and reality, they turned that reimbursement around in record time. So it was a tremendous lift for us to see that improvement, and again, to have SED so supportive of our needs and understanding the needs we had with regard to our cash flow. So again, a huge thank you out to SED and to our own internal team members who turned that reimbursement around. The only other item that I'd like to bring to your attention this evening within the H Fund is actually, you saw the movement of is $1.1 million, and Callie, that is actually, I believe, on page 3 of my memo. Thank you. And what that was and what that's representing is the movement of the money from the H Fund where this expense was originally booked, and then it was pulled over to the SRSA funding where it was actually approved for a SRSA expenditure underneath the grant. So again, only because it's the dollar amount that's there that may cause you some question with regard to what was happening, I wanted to bring that to light. In this evening's packet, you're going to find your first presentation of the food service program. This is our preliminary report for this program. This was a report that was requested by Vice President LeBron. And just to give more transparency to the program, just to bring clarity to the program, and again, at her request, it was to possibly identify any financial concerns that may be present so that none of you as commissioners would be caught off guard. And so what you're going to see with that report is that there actually is a I have my number right here. Yes, there is a 1.1 million, let me see here, pull this up.
Am I not looking at the right one?
Yes. With the pandemic relief check that we mentioned at last month's meeting, there is actually a profit of 1.1 million. However, had that relief check not been received, what it's showing you on the bottom line there is that the program at this point in time, which was November month ended, for the program so far for the course of the year, the deficit would be $952,000. So in bringing this information forward to you this evening, what we wanted to do was, first of all, have you take a look at it, digest it, see what additional information you may need, if it meets your needs or not, and if you need to have it changed, if you could just let us know if there's other information that you're looking for. Okay? And that pretty much concludes my report. The only other update I wanted to provide you with this evening was that we did receive notice late yesterday that one of the 4 charter schools that was intended to open in 22-23 has decided not to open in 22-23, so we are down to 3 charter schools, and that will have an impact on enrollment we're anticipating of 412 students. So again, still concerning, but at the same time, it's less than we had originally projected, which I believe we reported to you last month that was 516 students. So every little bit helps. That's all I have for this evening, unless you have any questions.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Powell?
Sorry, thank you. On page 7, on the revenue summary, under the local section, this isn't new. It appears the same way in the reports provided to us in December, but the title keeps drawing my eye, and I need a reminder of the line item that's indirect costs includes with it a $4.5 million increase. If you could just remind us what falls under that heading, indirect costs?
Absolutely. When we are awarded grants, there's a certain portion of the grants that can be allocated back to the indirect costs associated with supporting that grant within the district. And so we use that money then to apply it to expenditures. For instance, it could be time from individuals working on the grant that aren't covered under the grant. It's just to apply it more towards the operating costs. So it's revenue that we can use to offset our operational costs.
Can I just suggest that that be titled reimbursement of indirect costs? Because when I see the phrase indirect costs, I think it belongs in an expense section, not in a revenue section.
It's the revenue to offset the expense.
Understood. Okay. But it's because it's revenue, it's essentially, is it not reimbursement of indirect costs?
It's applied to expenditures within the general fund. So I can work it out with the team and with the accounting team and see what we can come up with what's acceptable, willing to take a look at it.
But you understand?
I understand.
Yep. I mean,
absolutely.
Just the phrase itself suggests expense, not revenues. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about food service. When visiting the food service department, just want to let our community know why it seems that we can't have the kind of good food that we want to have. Some of the recipes I see the deli is proposing, part of it is that we're constrained by the Food and Drug Administration, USDA. You know, they give us $24 million and they expect that we provide meals in a certain way. Part of that was under the Obama administration. You know that the First Lady, former First Lady, was a proponent of healthy eating. And so some of this has to do with the fact that the federal government wants to assure that we're eating healthy. And so what I understand is that even in the suburbs, many of those districts in the suburbs don't take the funding from the USDA. However, we take it, and we are obligated to have certain kinds of meals if we're taking the money. So we're talking about $24 million. And Mike, if you can, if I'm on point or if I'm saying something wrong, please correct me. But in many regards, you know, we get these complaints from our students that the food is not good, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that we are accepting the $24 million from the USDA, and there are certain requirements that they make with regard to the meals. So. And it's kind of difficult to veer from that. So.
President Elliott, I'm going to have Sophia call you because she has lots of feedback on the food in the district. And I would respectfully say that the district could be more creative, even with those constraints around healthy eating. And definitely we will have more conversations about food services in the future. But I'm still going to have Sophia call you for real, for real. I'm going to tell her to call you and talk to you about food, because she's always telling me about it every single day in this district. Yeah. So I do have a couple of questions. One is on page 3 here that you just brought to our attention. When you're moving, you know, in this case, 1.1 million and plus, from general funds, right? And you're moving it over to CRESA, right? Is that what you're doing? You're
It
using.
went from the H fund, so that's not general, that's the capital
So,
fund.
okay, so
Yeah.
H funds, you're moving it from one funding stream that is a consistent standing funding stream within the district, and it's in our budget. That's what we had budgeted in there, right? We're moving that amount over to use CRESA dollars. What happens to those dollars that were there originally in the H funds? Does it just stay in the H funds now?
The actual expenditure itself is, so it's going to be a reimbursement. The H fund would be reimbursed by the SRSA grant money.
Okay, so it's going to
Yeah,
reimburse it then, but what do we do with that money then?
It would be freed up for other expenditures within the H fund that wouldn't be covered under SRSA.
Okay. And then I do have, personally, I did see that there's going to be some resolutions, and we're doing some budget transfers around, you know, over 5 million around that. But I definitely have some feelings around using this one-time money to reimburse the district on things that were already in their budget, where we really, in my opinion, could be more innovative, especially with the needs that our district has. I'm not a fan of reimbursing. I'll go into that when we get to the resolutions. But I do have a question on this.
Could I answer that though first?
Yes, go ahead.
This is part of the Oracle Cloud integration. So even, I mean, it is an allowable expense, and it is a one-time expense underneath SRSA. So it is allowable. I do hear what you're saying. Originally, we did map it out to have it paid out of the
budget,
out of the capital budget, but it is going to be allowable underneath SRSA, so that's why we're using those dollars, which...
No, I want to be clear to especially to the community listening, that I understand that it's allowable through the state, and the state actually has to approve how we move money anyway, and our plans for it, if you will. But what I'm saying is, if we already budgeted for it, we should be looking at using that money. And if it frees up that money, then that frees up the money to do other things like direct services for students versus other things. But I'll get to it when we get to the resolutions. But I do want to talk about the quarterly report memo. So in this memo, I just saw that it has multiple years. I will get to this another time. But when I open up the quarterly reports and I go year over year, it starts at 2018-19 year. There are a number of item lines that appear in red in the parentheses. I would think it's when I see red parentheses, I think it's a negative. I don't know if it's saying it's a credit to the district or not. And when I see red in parentheses, especially on an expenditure report like this, typically it is some sort of like red flag that there's a deficit there or amount missing. But so let me just ask that we go to page 2 of that report, of the quarterly change order report, so people can see what I'm talking about.
Okay, that would be Mike Schmidt's area, so could we call him up?
Yeah, we can. Mike, come on up. But then, Carlene, I am curious because it said something that this may be also a credit, and if it's a credit, I'm curious as to what happens to that money as a credit.
I can answer, I mean, for that, if it's credit, it would go back into the project, if it's a credit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on down.
Vice President LeBron, as Mike is coming up, I also want to mention that Commissioner Malloy's hand is up on Zoom.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Malloy, I'll call on you next. Did you hear my question, Mike?
I did not. I'm sorry, Vice
Okay.
President.
On this page, I'm just using this page as an example, but it's read throughout the entire report. The numbers are read in parentheses with a dollar amount. And they vary, right? There's one for $848, but then it jumps to like $28,000. But it's in the red, so I couldn't tell if it was a credit or if it's a deficit or a debit, if you will.
Well, the reds would be, pardon me, the reds would be on the deficit side, but for a particular project, a particular change order, but we also judge it as an overall program in general. So we may have a one item here that may be a deduct or a change order that puts us in a negative sense for that particular item. But overall, we offset it with positive ones in other areas. So I wouldn't be too alarmed, not my word, in regards to one specific red item on a change order report, because it's only one item amongst a number of them that are in the positive sense.
So how would I know as a board member reading this that there's a balance in these numbers when there's a deficit in one project? Where would I see the credit in another project offsetting that deficit?
We would probably have to frame it in a different way so you could see the overall scope of the full project. This is, as I said, this is just one particular change order. That might be the best way to frame it. So when we have a project that would be for a project, let's say at East, for example, and we were doing a boiler replacement project, there may be a number of change orders that go in a positive and negative for that particular project. So I think if we show it in full, that would give a better snapshot. And I can talk to my team as well and kind of reframe that so we get a clearer picture for your.
Yeah, I think I would like to see how we're,
I'm more than happy to do that.
Filling, one deficit with one credit and so forth. Because reading this, I was not able to tell, like, okay,
Understood.
like I said, some of the amounts are really small, but then they jump significantly, and they're across multiple pages.
Right.
So page after page, you see red in many of these projects. And this is over multiple years.
Yes, it is.
So that's the other piece. It's like, okay, I'm only touching on 18, 19, which has passed 2 years now, at least, right? 2, 3 years, in terms of the school year and that budget year. So yeah, we'll probably have more conversations around these things in the future, but I was just kind of alarmed
you're
around
absolutely
this.
right. I think one of the key things you mentioned is the number of years in that changeover. Remember, from the October, we're closing out. We're entering into a new borrowing for the summer. You know what I mean? So you're always in a cycle
Of multiple years.
Absolutely. So I think we can probably frame it a little bit differently. Maybe at the next finance committee meeting, or an upcoming one, we can probably show some ideas and then get some feedback and go from there.
Sounds good. Thanks,
okay,
Mike.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Carlene, for your notebook.
All right. I'm sorry, Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you. Good evening. Carlene, just in terms of what you presented in terms of the numbers on food service, I just would like to better understand as a commissioner the food service budget numbers in general. And so I realize that might be something for the question log or discussions we'll have moving forward as budget season approaches. But if I'm reading things correctly on the screen, I'm wondering, the numbers that you presented, is that essentially telling us that we need to increase our budget by almost $1 million more because of this shortfall?
No, actually, I'm going to ask Mike to come back up because we had already decided that we'd be tag teaming this. And again, these are the numbers that his team has presented to my team. And so I'll have him address that. Thanks, Mike. Do you need the report?
General idea. So the reason why that, excuse me again, the reason why that item is outlined as a deficit is the federal government is still auditing our September numbers, and when those come in, that in a sense offsets that deficit at this point. So it will balance out as soon as we have as soon as the audit is completed. Then we will be able to put that on the revenue side, and it'll dramatically reduce that number to almost, I think it's net zero. I think when it's done, isn't it? I think it's what it works out to be. Yeah, I think it is too. So I don't have a timeline on when they're going to finish it, but we've got it captured, and we're ready to shift it over once they complete their work. And it's not,
okay, so that's
it's not unusual, by the way. This is a typical annual process that they go through as well.
Okay, so stay up there for just a second because I have a couple other questions relating to this. I know, Mike, we've had the opportunity to speak before just about the food service budget in general. This is sort of a passion of mine. I'm actually meeting with Delhi tomorrow. I know that just to kind of highlight and uplift what President Elliott was already saying earlier, other districts contribute more out of pocket beyond the federal reimbursements. And the district has established, the district has established a meal advisory council, which I've been attending for the last couple of months. There's another meeting next month. And it was determined at the Meal Advisory Council meeting, just through questions of some of our staff, that we would need to contribute at least $1 million more than what we already are contributing in order to improve the quality of what we are serving our students and perhaps having less of a reliance on prepackaged or processed foods. We heard from a number of students there who expressed including my own daughter, one of my own daughters, who just expressed some dismay over some of the things that are being served. And again, we love our food service employees and everyone's working really hard, but we know that better quality food sometimes means more of an investment from our district. And I'd like to better understand as a board member, just if we're essentially breaking even every year, are we always in a deficit with our food service? And I want to get to the bottom of how much we really need to start contributing in addition to that federal reimbursement and to just start to improve the quality of what we're serving our kids.
Sure. I think the last several years probably give us a little bit of a mixed story, obviously with COVID and low participation in certain years, whether we were remote or when we returned, that we didn't have all of our students come back. That low participation number certainly drives a deficit because it doesn't offset the cost of labor nor the cost of the food. I think now that we're more in a normal setting where we have the majority of our students obviously are back in school and we're serving at almost a full capacity across the district, now those numbers are coming back to what I would say more in the normal range. I do think that you're right. We actually talked about this in the last budget cycle, that as I think as President Elliott articulated, we're basically, we're spending what we are spending what we have to spend, right? We're taking the federal dollars and so forth, and we're spending those on our labor costs as well as our food costs. I think the couple things come to mind, right? One, if you go to Wegmans right now and you go down the aisles, it's tough to find some products. So we're in the same situation, right? We're facing very significant supply chain issues. Inflation, also the cost of almost everything that we purchase has gone up. So it is a volatile environment in many ways, where the conversation we would have had last April would have looked last January would have looked very different than what it was today because of some of the outside indicators that are impacting some of the work that we do. So I think there's certainly a benefit to a contribution in terms of being able to elevate the type of product. Once again, if you go to your average grocery store, you can, if you're buying organic versus regular, that price is elevated, but you're purchasing that for a particular reason. So I do think it's kind of the same philosophy in a sense. So I think last year we were targeting about a $500,000 offset. I think we would have to be able to, I would not be able to give you a number today as what it would be. I think when we put our budget together working with Carlene's team, we'll be able to more fine tune that and come back with some options for the board to consider and what so to speak, what the bang for the buck would be. Like if you invest this, here's what we could provide, with the idea that we just don't know what some of these outliers are going to face. We're going to face here later in the spring in terms of the cost of the product. And the other piece is we had a recent contract settlement with Vente. So our cost sometimes of our labor increases, but the reimbursement has not traditionally kept up with the cost of the product nor the cost of labor. So we elevated all of our staff members to, I believe, $15 an hour. Well, if the reimbursement stays flatline and your expenses go up, then in a sense you're going to have a delta at some point. So I think we will do a good job in terms of projecting where that may be, and then come back through the budget process and be able to articulate, where at this number, here's what we can hope to attain, and then whatever if you want, and then kind of go to scale with that. So I think that would be very helpful. And I think when you do, Delhi is all of a sudden very popular. President Elliott visited us, and Commissioner Malloy is. I think when you visit Delhi tomorrow, he probably can be able to show you more with our products in the freezer and the coolers and so forth, what we're kind of looking at in terms of what we could purchase, what the cost was in a sense 6 months ago for the same product, and how we're kind of dealing with that offset.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Malloy, I'm going to round robin if you have more questions, because I have Commissioner Powell. Okay, Commissioner Powell, and then Commissioner Simmons.
Okay, I didn't know we were going to go to the quarterly change order report, so if we could go to the bottom of page 3, it's actually numbered page 2. I'm waiting for it to appear on the screen.
Page 3.
Should just scroll, yeah. maybe you want to enlarge that. That's the net for that quarter. So in the previous quarter, the number at the purple line was about 117,000. So to Commissioner LeBron's question about how do we know where we really stand, I wonder if we could just put a summary page starting at quarter 2,
Yes.
quarter 3, quarter 4, that just pulls those numbers together so we can see the net across quarters.
I would agree. That's kind of what I was envisioning as well. A little bit way to articulate that, because when it's just a list of, one after another, then there's no context to it, then it's just a list of items. So I think we can probably do that and give you a couple of ideas and see what works best.
But if you know where to look on each quarterly report, it's not a hard math problem. Yeah, thank you.
Well, it may be easy for you, it's sometimes more difficult for me.
Well, I just also want to add that when I make these types of requests, that we have to keep in mind that there is a plain language law, so we should be communicating to our community as plain language, and they should not need accounting or CPA degrees to read these reports on anything that we're doing regarding spending dollars in the district. But, so I just want to add that piece, because I think that we sometimes forget the community side of it, that they should be able to open any of our documents, any of our reports, and follow along and understand as best as possible without having that background or degree.
We would agree. Last October, if you remember, I did a presentation kind of walking people through the CIP capital process, and I think if we were to revisit that at the board's, or certainly the superintendent and the board's request, we could pull this item out, because it does come before you on a monthly basis, and be able to kind of be able to walk through each one of the items so that everyone has a clear understanding of what's on there, and then also obviously make those modifications if we see fit. The last presentation kind of took it very globally and kind of outlined those 3 different years that you spoke about, so we can probably take it and break it down a little bit further. We can do whatever it is, make it easier for everyone else, and obviously especially for our community.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll have a conversation at
Okay,
the next
very good.
finance previews meeting and see if we want to put it on the agenda moving forward.
Okay.
Commissioner Simmons?
Just a general comment. Thank you for the presentation. I'm happy to hear that we're looking at options and viable ways to offset some of the costs or figure out how to make our food better for our students. And I know that that's a lot of operation, figure counting, and all of that type of stuff, limitations and funding. I just wanted to just really go and have a human moment as far as saying, when we make these decisions, let's consider what we would do and how creative we would be if it were our own children, grandchildren, or family members that were in need of this food. So just putting that lens on the decisions that are being made, I just wanted to bring that out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. At this time, I'm asking for, if there are no further questions. Commissioner Malloy, you all set? Okay. A motion to accept the 12/21 unaudited finance report and the 21-22 second quarter change order reports. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Did you capture that? You saw who motioned and seconded? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Who was the second? I'm sorry, I do need to capture that.
Oh, I just asked if it was captured. It was Commissioner Simmons and Commissioner Malloy.
Yes, I was about to tackle you.
Oh, okay.
We're good.
Thank you.
I was just saying, if there's no further discussion.
Oh, yeah, if there's no other further discussions. All those in favor? Aye.
Are we waiting for the computer loading?
Is it going to pop up on the computer?
Kalia.
Yes, it should be there now. I apologize.
Okay, I don't see it, but,
It's there now.
oh, yep, I see it.
It is quite a delay, so you have to be patient.
Okay, and then at this time, under new business, we're just going to move it up because it would have naturally come up under the finance, is the budget calendar. There are some key dates that were updated and highlighted in yellow. And so there's budget deliberations that were updated. There are new city dates that provided for public hearing and budget adoption dates. We are still waiting to hear from the city on the City Council and RCSD's joint budget and public hearing. That date is still being worked out. I'm gonna ask for some grace because they're also going through a transition, both with new council members and a mayor, but we're hoping to get that date locked in by at least February. So if there are any questions, the yellow highlighted are the new dates that we have. And then we'll probably have to bring back the budget calendar again for additional amendments as we continue to get dates locked in and finalized.
So VP, why do we need to vote on this now? We still need to get the date from City Council.
Because we have all the dates at this point except for the joint budget hearing, and so this sets the calendar for the administration as well and for our community to know when we're going to start the budget process, when we're going to do deliberations, and for ourselves too to start preparing.
So we're not going to have to vote on this again when we get this
We'll
date,
have to
are we?
vote on the city's date. The city gave us the date for when the city council budget approval is going to happen because they set their date already for the city council budget approval. The only thing that we have not gotten back from them is the joint budget hearing that we typically do with RCSD and city council. So we usually have a budget hearing with them as a board and then a joint council board public hearing where folks sign up at the city council meeting to speak on our budget. So that date is still to be determined, TBD. So all the other dates are plugged in though, so.
So how soon will we hear from City Council about their?
They've asked for some grace, so we're hoping, it's not just city council, it's also the mayor. So we're hoping to gently push and probe by February so that we can, mid-February to have the date, but we do know that they're gonna vote on the budget on Tuesday, June 14th. So it's usually right before, they're still going through everyone's calendars and schedules. But as of right now, we have all the other dates, and that's what the budget amendment, the budget calendar amendment would be tonight. So if there are no, Commissioner Powell?
So at the very bottom, it shows of page 2, you've got round 1, round 2, round 3, TBD, but there are dates filled in, right? The for
Perhaps I can jump in if you,
yes,
if you don't.
please.
Yeah,
help me
there's,
understand that.
we don't know what the budget book's gonna look like yet until we finish the work session too.
Yes,
You're talking about the exact sections that are going to be under discussion? 'Cause-
Correct. So those green, the green dates that you do see, all the dates are plugged in. The challenge is that the budget book, as you recall from last month's Finance Committee meeting, the budget book is not finalized because there is a proposal on the table regarding the revamp new version of the budget book. Based on the budget book, we go ahead and divvy up the sections that will be deliberated by the board when the board has the budget questions facilitated through the budget question log. So at the current moment, we haven't been able to plug in what those sections will be for those dates that are provided. As soon as the board and the finance team come to an agreement over what the budget book will look like, then we'll be able to divvy up those sections, and then that will be added to the for the proceedings. But that's not really part of the calendar. It just alerts the board and administration as to what questions will be coming and when, based on the sections of the budget book.
Okay, that does explain it. I was looking to see dates under round 1, 2, and 3, but now that you're telling me that it's going to be sections 1 through whatever, section 4 through 7, whatever. Now I understand what the TBD is for. I thought it was holding for dates, but we have dates, so.
We have dates. So those green dates that are there, the lighter, it kind of alerts the administration as to when they can expect board questions and when the board can know when questions are due from them to the administration, and the responses will be back to them. So that is where we are at right now. The board will talk more about the budget calendar in next week, Tuesday's February 3rd work session.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Powell, for that clarification too. So I've also asked the CFO and her team to submit some of those proposals to the board in advance of the February 3rd work session so that you all have some time to sort of review where we have the book at currently and kind of where they're hoping and envisioning for it to move to and some of the justifications why. So there'll be some written information around that and some visuals, but certainly on February 3rd at the work session, that's one of the first topics we're going to cover is the budget book to get that out the way. That way they can then move forward and in whatever direction the board chooses or decides at that work session. And then we'll be able to kind of understand in round one, you know, we're going to talk about schools or we're going to talk about administration and so forth and what those sections look like. So there are no further questions. Can I get a motion to approve the amended budget calendar?
Second.
Oh, thank you. That was Commissioner Powell, motioned and seconded by President Elliott. Did you capture that, Kalia?
I did, and the vote is open.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, can I get a vote? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All set?
All set with that. Thank you, President Elliott. That concludes the finance portion of this meeting.
Thank you, Vice President. The next report is the Governance Committee report, and that's Commissioner Malloy. Commissioner?
Thank you. Good evening again. The Governance Committee met as a committee of the whole on Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. During that meeting, a staff member spoke on the topic of testing availability for teachers, and one community member submitted a comment on transportation. Our superintendent, Dr. Leslie Myers-Small, presented her superintendent's report, which covered data on student attendance for the first day of school following the holiday break for elementary schools, high schools, and programs, and a comparison of absenteeism data for students after the holiday break versus a typical school day in winter. In addition, Dr. Myers-Small shared staff attendance, compared staff attendance after holiday break this year versus after holiday break in 2020, and revealed the impacts the district has faced due to staff shortages. Finally, Dr. Myers-Small presented the plan to prevent spread of COVID-19 in schools. The board then discussed a proposal for the board administration work sessions on pending school closures or reconfiguration plans. There was an introduction to new board members and an update on the onboarding process for our commissioners. An update was provided and discussion on the Board of Education racial bias training. We'll be taking part in that beginning on Saturday. The board briefly discussed the board liaison school assignments, meeting calendars, and committee structure. And finally, the board discussed upcoming governance decisions for placement on special meeting agendas per the state monitor's plan. Our next governance committee meeting is going to be Tuesday, June 7th at 5:30 p.m. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now we're going to go to superintendent's reports, and I'm going to see if, oh, did I move? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a policy.
Trying to move it on. Commissioner Powell, policy report.
Thank you. The full written report is on board docs for anyone to see, but to summarize, we did meet on Tuesday, January 4th. We have 2 packets of policies currently in our pipeline that when we get to new business, we're going to have a set of policies that are the board policy range, the 2000 range, that are in their second reading stage. And as of our January 4th meeting, we have a second packet that will be coming before the board for its first reading. And they are essentially the goals policies. Coming up on our next policy committee meeting, which is be February 1st, we will be tackling the 7000 series, the facilities series. My understanding is that they have cleared cabinet. We discussed them in a subcommittee quite some time ago. And what's up in the queue after that is we have returned to some of the schools packet. So that's the long vision. So the pipeline is moving nicely. Again, our next meeting is Tuesday, February 1st. The report says 5:30, but I don't know who's actually going to be first on what committee is actually going to be meeting first. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. And now we'll go to the superintendent's report. I understand, however, that Dr. Nelms needs to report first. How are you, Dr. Nelms?
I'm doing well. Thank you for being flexible tonight. I appreciate everyone. Just doing some daddy duty tonight. So I have to be quick. My son has some surgery, but he's doing fine and recovering. So thanks for being patient. So my report is going to be relatively brief, and it's going to include some of the considerations for the resolutions as well. I better pin myself here so I can see my slides. The first slide is just acknowledging one of our phenomenal students. I know she looks familiar to you all because she is a daughter of Ricardo Adams, who's also resting. She was a recent recipient of the Rochester Teachers Association's Dr. Martin Luther King Award, student recognition. For those who know Maya, she is actively involved in community-based organizations, district-wide events, and also leads one of our great leaders at East. So we want to just take some time to congratulate her and all that she's doing and has done and will continue to do on behalf of students throughout the RCSD. Next slide. Tonight's resolution, you will see a couple resolutions. One is for standards-based grading. Standards-based grading essentially is a way of thinking about teachers better understanding how to decide or delineate or defer what students know and are able to do relative to the standards. It's a shift that's been in the education space for well over 2 decades in thinking about, are we adequately giving kids grades that best reflect their knowledge of a content. For example, we know that if you give a kid a couple zeros and you use the basic averaging formula, so if they have 5 grades in the grade book, they get 100, and they get 3 zeros. If you average that, it's a failing grade, even though they mastered 2 of those areas. And so what does that 0 represent? Does it mean the kid knew nothing? Or did they just bomb that particular test? Did they miss an assignment? And so just thinking about how our grades reflect the student's ability to meet the standards becomes a critical conversation and one that our teachers are ready to dig in. I believe that COVID has taught us a lot, that there are students who learn in very unique and different ways, and they demonstrated mastery throughout COVID. And there are other kids who struggle because of the way in which we instruct and assess their knowledge. And so what COVID has taught us is that we have to better understand where our kids are, their learning interests, their profiles, skills, and abilities, and then how do we build them to get them to a point in which they meet standards. And it starts with us knowing who they are as learners and also understanding directly where we're going. The next slide will actually speak to the latter of that. Understanding who they are as learners in terms of how to grade them and assess them is a pathway or a roadmap towards understanding how we create curriculum that'll guide them along that journey. The understanding by design framework, again, in the education space is decades old. It's really a formula for understanding first, where do you want to go, your outcomes, kind of people in business world call it kind of SMART goals. The second is what evidence must the student demonstrate to be able to determine if they've met that goal or not, but also what are the lessons that have to be taught and designed that allow students to demonstrate the evidence that's required to determine if they met the standard. And then those learning experiences, instruction, and the iterative nature of what teachers do daily in their design of lessons and also the implementation of those lessons that give the kids the best chance to demonstrate mastery. And so the understanding by design framework and curriculum writing framework is what you'll see us on the resolutions tonight, is getting teachers to be more purposeful and thoughtful in that planning and execution of that work. It's an ongoing effort. You're fine, next slide's fine. it's an ongoing effort for us to continue to refine our curriculum. I've said this many times, probably ad nauseum, the East is always part of the district. And so this is a district-based curriculum, one that the board has approved and helped pay for. So it's all of ours. And then we've taken some of those lessons that are directly tied to our culturally relevant, responsive pedagogy and framework. And we've loaded those on the Elevated Educator website. And so for all teachers in the district, they have access to the curriculum. And then the Elevated Educator is open source for, internationally. And it's just, helping teachers better understand the importance of having culturally relevant and sustaining pedagogy as part of their initial planning. So it's at the core of the work. It's not something that's ancillary or added on, that everything that we do has a culturally relevant, responsive lens as we're designing initially, and not, something that we just add on after the work has been completed. I think that's the last slide. So thank you very much. And that's my presentation for this evening. And I think I see Commissioner Malloy's hand, but I'm not, no, that's your job, President Elliott.
Yeah, I can't even see it. So you could have acknowledged her. Commissioner Malloy, you have a question for Dr. Nelms?
Just more a comment. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Dr. Nelms, for all the work that you do and that everyone at East is doing. I just wanted to uplift what you were saying about standards-based grading, as well as the understanding by design framework. I know that what I have viewed from East and been exposed to in the short time that I've been on the board, it's helping me to become a better teacher as well in my own district. And so I just want to commend you and your staff for helping to implement this. And I look forward to seeing this used across the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President LeBron.
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I do want to recognize Maya. So congratulations to Maya Adams. Definitely have no doubts that she is going to be a fierce advocate in the future and someone to be reckoned with. So congratulations to her. I also want to uplift Commissioner Adams, as you may all recognize, is not here with us tonight and also had surgery and is recovering and is at home now. And certainly misses this work because he was still emailing and I had to tell him to stop emailing after surgery, focus on getting better. So we want to send well wishes to Mr. Adams, Commissioner Adams tonight as well. The only, I guess, question I had, and it's more of a comment, Superintendent Nelms, is also a comment to my colleague, Commissioner Simmons, around the ESA committee. Because as she takes over as the new, chair for that group, just having conversations of how we are requiring different data points and different conversations around each of our schools that we include East as part of ESA moving forward. It could be every other month. I mean, it'll be up to her as the chair to determine the level of appropriateness, but I will like to make that formal request versus just presenting East at these board business meetings and then requiring all our other schools to be on, under the microscope spotlight with the data points. So yeah, I just want to give you a heads up, Superintendent Nelms, and make that request of Commissioner Simmons.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Nelms. Appreciate it. Be well.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
I was just going to say thank you, Vice President. I'll definitely take that into consideration and take a look at how it would work to have the data points lifted and if it would be advantageous for the ESA committee. So thank you for bringing that point.
Thank you. Have a good night, Dr. Nelms.
And Dr. Nelms, well wishes to your son as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Superintendent Myers-Small.
Good evening, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron, to our commissioners, to certainly Commissioner Adams in his absence, and everyone who's either physically present or watching on YouTube or on Facebook. Tonight is my January 27th Superintendent's Report. I have a few items that I just want to review, and then the bulk of my presentation will be on an update on our federal funds. So I'll begin with Test to Stay. The district is now offering a Test to Stay program, which begins on Monday, January 31st. Test to Stay reduces student absences by allowing unvaccinated students exposed at school. And that's really an important characteristic or point to reiterate its students exposed at school so they could remain in school with a negative COVID test. Today, a robocall and a letter went out to staff as well as families. Only students who are not fully vaccinated and exposed to COVID at school are eligible to participate in Test to Stay. Families of students who meet these criteria will be notified by the school nurse, and testing for these students will take place at Wilson Foundation Academy from 6:15 to 9:30 a.m. Participation in Test to Stay only allows a child to come to school for the instructional day. Just as a reminder, students cannot participate in extracurricular activities for a full 10 days past the date of exposure. Along those same lines, we are fortunate to have amazing partners in government, especially with County Executive Bello and his team. Thanks to a partnership with the county, we held several COVID-19 vaccination clinics at schools this month. We had clinics for children aged 5 and up, whether it was their first dose, second dose, or booster. We also had appointments available at our University of Rochester and Rochester Regional Health school-based clinics, along with Golisano Children's Hospital. There were more than 200 vaccinations administered across our schools. And we know that getting vaccinated is the best way to minimize the spread of COVID, and we are certainly grateful to everyone who's been willing to partner with us. We do have yet another teacher who has been awarded a Golden Apple Award. Earlier this month, Channel News 8 visited school number 5 to present Phil LaPietra with a Golden Apple Award. He's a physical education teacher, and I've had the opportunity to meet him. And he was nominated by fellow teaching colleague Michael Roselli, who says Phil goes above and beyond on a daily basis for the enrichment of students. Phil has been teaching at School 5 for more than 20 years, and I am proud to highlight his wonderful achievements and congratulate him on an award well deserved. A few hours ago, I had the opportunity to meet Roland Williams, and President Elliott was in our office suite to meet him, to see him as well. She's met him before. And so, pardon the football language, but we did score a huge touchdown when we received word that former Super Bowl champion and Rochester City School graduate Roland Williams would be donating 6,500 KN95 masks to our district. He is the co-founder and president of Supplier Diversity and Value Assurance, and it's a company that's making this donation on behalf of the Rochester City School District. Just as a note, it's one of the largest Black-owned medical supply companies. I want to again thank Roland for his commitment to the Rochester City School District, our students, and our staff. Not too long ago, one of our teachers at the East EPO had an amazing experience in California. She had the opportunity to march in the Rose Parade. Not only is Becky Fox the band director at East, she's also the director of the district-wide Pride of Rochester marching band. She was one of 300 band directors and music teachers from across the country to march in the parade on New Year's Day. Congratulations again, Becky. And finally, January is School Board Recognition Month, and I certainly want to offer my thanks on behalf of our team to each of our Board of Education commissioners. We know that this work is sometimes thankless, but we certainly appreciate your dedication, your passion, and commitment to the roles that you respectively play. I also appreciate your feedback on the many issues that we have encountered throughout the course of the year. And as we continue to work in concert with one another, I value your thoughtfulness and your care. And then just on a personal note, I do want to thank the Board of Education for granting me a little bit of time. My mom was very, very ill, and they allowed me to take time to tend to her. So I would be remiss if I did not thank you all for just granting me that time with my mom. Next, we will talk about the Relief Funds Quarter 2 report. And this is October 1st through December 31st, 2021. As each of you are aware, our strategic plan does guide the work in the Rochester City School District. And through 4 distinct levers, which are engage, lift up, collaborate, and lead, our funds and the way that we went about using those funds were guided by our strategic plan priorities. The objectives for the presentation tonight is to provide updates on fiscal and programmatic progress of CRSA funds and to identify resources available for further detail. So this slide is very familiar, or should be very familiar to each of you. As you know, we received the Rochester City School District funding in 3 streams. In green, it's CARES. In blue, it's CRSA. And in purple, it's ARP. Great news is that our district received formal approval of its ARP application on January 7th, and we now may begin to take action on the initiatives within ARP. Tonight's update will focus on CRSA-funded initiatives, as CRSA funding was available during the second quarter. ARP updates will be included in next quarter's updates as it is just underway. This slide serves as a reminder of the progress that we use to create CRSA and ARP spending plans. And if you remember, this was based on many factors, including, or many resources, including Council of Great City Schools. It consists of identification of 7 priority areas that you see listed. CRSA funds are used to uplift initiatives in 3 of the 7 priorities identified. These are the 3 priorities for which CRSA funds were used during quarter 2. Rigorous academics and instruction, leadership and instructional capacity, and district-wide infrastructure. The purple lines show the different initiatives within the priority of which the funds are being used to support. The following slides, which Dr. Morris will review, will provide a high-level overview of implementation progress associated with each initiative listed here and then sorted by priority.
Good evening, Board Commissioners. So I'm going to review the initiatives that Dr. Myers-Small just discussed. So CRSA in quarter 2 focused on priority 1, 3, and 6. So on the next slide, which is discussing priority 1, you will see that there were 2 initiatives that were focused on during quarter 2, and that is the initiative that it falls under rigorous academic instruction, which are high quality teaching and learning for all, and school redesign and program diversification. So these 2 initiatives are also indicated by a heat map to the far right. That heat map will tell us whether we have started on the initiative or not, and if there is an initiative that has begun that is on track for completion. So red means that the activity has not yet been initiated. Yellow means that the activity has begun and has made demonstrable progress. And green means that the activity is fully underway and is on track to complete. Many of the activities that you will see within the heat maps tonight will be in yellow as they are just getting underway. On the next slide, you'll see that we have priority 3, which is leadership and instructional capacity. On the prior slide, there were several initiatives and activities that were associated with those 2 initiatives that supported student academics and instruction. But on priority 3, we have leadership and instructional capacity, where there is investment in staff capacity. And the 2 initiatives that are focused under this initiative are an Aspiring Leaders Pipeline Program and creating a Turnaround School Leaders Program. So these activities are geared towards school turnaround, and several of these are helping to focus on recruitment and retention of staff in critical areas. So these activities are underway, so you'll see that it is yellow. And specifically, we have an RFP that has been distributed to help us identify a vendor to help coordinate this work. On the next slide, which is priority 6, this is the focus of activities that are working to support district-wide infrastructure. So a considerable number of initiatives within this priority area are funded by CRSA, and these include infrastructure improvements, effective use of federal funds, the Oracle upgrade and replacement, and finally, the student health services and COVID response activities. Again, most of the initiatives here are listed as having made demonstrable progress, as is much of the internal business processes required to be undertaken to access the funds and begin implementation are underway or have been completed. So the contract administration software area was addressed this week. So right now it's red, but it will be yellow for our next quarterly report on this particular activity. In the next slide, you'll see that we're going to talk about how the fiscal progress has been made over the past quarter for CRSA-related initiatives. So this slide is just a refresher. We've used this slide before, where we've shown the allocation of funds into each one of the areas of CRSA focus. So in the next slide, we wanted to talk about our overall fiscal process and progress towards spend of the money. So reading left to right, the district's initial allocation began at approximately $87 million. At the end of quarter 2, which was the end of December, we had approximately $70 million left available to be actioned on for approved activities. Of particular note within the fiscal activity related to this grant is that during quarter 2 is that the grant is being administered on a reimbursement basis. The district will be submitting requests for reimbursement monthly and did submit its first request for an amount of approximately $1 million in early January. And as the Chief Financial Officer mentioned, the reimbursement request for that amount was processed by the State Education Department within a week, which is a very speedy response in terms of grant reimbursements and has outpaced any of the reimbursements requests that we've had in the past. So the approximately $1 million that you see in the slide listed as expensed has already been reimbursed to the district by NYSED and therefore had a only momentary impact on cash flow. So we wanted to make sure to bring that to the board's attention because we do work on a reimbursement expenditure with the State Education Department. In the next slide, we wanted to give the board an update on using these funds to support FTEs. So by initiative, I wanted to go and explain the FTEs that are being brought on related to CRSA. So this slide summarizes the number of FTEs allocated within each initiative. Of the 198 positions currently funded through the CURSA grant, 81.6 have been hired, 18 are in progress, and 98.4 are vacant. So I wanted to go through each one of the bars so I could explain to you. The very far right bar is the total CURSA FTE for Q2 that we are working to bring on board. However, the one where it says district infrastructure and improvements all the way to the left, there were 6 FTEs that we're trying to bring on board. We are in process of hiring those 6 FTEs, and those 6 FTEs are related to IM&T, help desk assistants. We also are bringing them on board to help support increased need for technical assistance associated with the deployment and the reliance on the devices in our schools and in remote environments, and also positions to support translations within the communications department. In the next bar, which shows 2 different colors, so you'll see that we have 9 that are in progress. You'll see that we have 7 that are hired. These are positions or FTEs that are a combination of positions that are both in finance, grants, and also research and evaluation. And these are slated to support the administration of the grant funds. The very middle bar, you'll see that there are 41.6 FTEs that have been brought on board. 2 are in progress. 3.4 are still vacant. This is in the area of high quality teaching and learning, and these positions are directed directly to schools to mitigate learning loss that happened during remote instruction. And these FTEs increase the specialist positions such as in art, music, family and career sciences, and pre-K, et cetera. The next one where you see a little tiny bar is 1. There is 1 position for focusing on school redesign. This position will coordinate efforts associated with redesigning educational programming at elementary schools and creating diverse pathways to graduation across high schools. And then the last bar is relating to student health and safety. These were 2 activities put forward to direct resources to schools, and there was a proposal of 75 FTE building subs. 29 of those are currently filled. Additionally, 52 paraprofessional COVID aides are approved through this funding source. 3 are currently filled. There are also funding set aside for temporary support with COVID aides through the Temporary Employment Store, or TESS. This serves as a recruitment effort as we are able to hire paraprofessionals from TESS after credentialing is complete. So the temporary nature of these positions is communicated to employees in their offer letter, as well as through conversations with members in the Office of Human Capital. And then in the next slide, we wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of the different ways that we're trying to make sure that we stay engaged with our stakeholders regarding our spend of CURSA dollars. We have an ARP website. That's at rcsdk12.org/ARP. And that's where we will have our Q2 narrative report. So half the presses, it looks like this, it's blue, but it also complements our purple report that you saw earlier in the presentation. Also, the department is working to ensure that we have a dashboard. We are in the process of developing a dashboard that will also sit at this website, and that dashboard is modeled after the things that we've seen from other districts across the nation, and will provide updates on the district spend down of these grants. So we are collaborating and working with Forecast 5 on that activity. This blue report that I held up is approximately 15 pages. It's got a lot more detail of the things that I've discussed tonight. So that's also available for public view as well if you have some questions about the different elements that I covered in this presentation. And then additionally, stakeholder engagement efforts are underway with a Federal Relief Fund committee of stakeholders convening at the end of March this year and committing to continue to meet on a quarterly basis throughout the life cycle of these grants. Additionally, updates will be presented on a quarterly basis at executive school-based planning team meetings and will also be pushed out to schools and requested to become part of schools' quarterly SBMT agendas. And then I wanted to also give a very quick update about zone reconfiguration. We are, the task force, which was convened to examine zone reconfiguration, will be recommending that no changes are made to the current zones or transportation routes. So therefore, the following recommendations are being withdrawn from board member consideration. One is eliminating transportation to or from babysitters located in the zone of residence. And another recommendation being withdrawn would be eliminating transportation for students enrolled in schools or programs outside of the district, and that would include urban, suburban, charter, and or private parochial. And this will be part of the discussion that we will have at the February 3rd work session.
Thank you, Dr. Morse. The only other thing that I'll add, if you'll just go back to that slide, is that we'll also remember we need to circle back on grade level configuration, that we were going to have those conversations, the secondary conversations, and we just need to finalize the conversation relative to elementary, because we received quite a bit of feedback from board commissioners. So I just wanted to mention that as well, so everyone could hear that.
Vice President LeBron.
Thank you. I tried to write them all down so that I can kind of go through them.
Okay.
Can I just go to the crest of priority 1, 3, and 6? And why, I guess I'm a little confused if there are more priorities, which I believe that there are. Why were these 3 selected to be discussed versus discussing 1, 2, and 3? You know what I mean? Like in an order.
Yes. So thank you for that question. We are focusing in this particular quarterly report on the priorities that had activity. So these are the 3 priorities that have had activity this quarter. So next quarter, we'll have more activity, and we'll also be able to share about activity in ARP.
Okay, thank you. And then I would just ask in the next presentation that as you identify the priorities, you also put the sum total perhaps spent up until this point budgeted versus spent on there, so that we don't have to go back to the ARP page and then look for the priority.
Sure.
And then, I mean, I can do that, but again, I want us to be mindful of that these presentations really are also for the community as well to understand and follow along. Then in addition, and that's what I have a question. I'm like, well, how much have you spent on this so far? Well, it was budgeted. And I can go and look that up on the ARP site, because I am looking at pulling what we have submitted and what you all have been giving us in terms of numbers and plotting it in a more, I guess, digestible way for myself with an Excel spreadsheet for myself, so that I can also look at how that looks like. But priority 1, staffing, I just have to uplift priority 1 on page 14, just this line that says staffing to right size, resourcing, supporting school chiefs. That is a mouthful, and I actually have no idea what that even means. And so if I can get clarity about what that particular sentence structure means.
Okay, I'll pull it up and I will tell you exactly what that means. So the school chiefs were allocated some staff to assist them. They're called School Network Coordinating Administrators, and there are 4 of them that were assigned to the school chiefs to assist them in the support with the schools. So those 4 are working to resource and help support the school chiefs in supporting their schools under their purview.
Vice President LeBron, it comes from recommendations that are in the academic plan. So that's directly correlated to recommendations from there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think I remember there were some conversations around this, and I have very strong feelings, and nothing against the Chiefs, I get it. But on the flip side, I'm always going to advocate for more actual supports in our schools, and maybe this will give you all the supports to be in our schools. But when I say supports in our schools, we often have shortages actually in the classrooms and in other places. And I'm sure that our principals and schools would love to have just an additional adult kind of supporting the school overall. Priority 3, on slide 15, priority 3, also trying to understand the creation of Aspiring Leaders Pipeline Program and Turnaround School Leaders Program, consultant services. Absolutely hate that we hire the amount of consultants that we do, and this is not a dig at you all, because this has been going on for a number of years, and certainly even in the past, previous administrations have went excessively in the consultant range, and I'm not saying that that's you guys. I'm saying I know from previous administration, and stipends for facilitators, stipends for participants, supporting supplies, materials, etc., and is listed as a priority in investing in staff capacity. Just trying to wrap my head around what investing in staff capacity would mean versus actually providing more actual staff to be, again, in the buildings to support the work that's happening. And I know that this is such a vast, large conversation, primarily because there are some classrooms where there may be a smaller amount of students, especially with parents are afraid to send their kids to school or are commuting by foot, and will not send their kids in freezing temperatures right now. But on the flip side of that, we're still in COVID, so we should want a social distance. So just trying to wrap my head around what that means and why that would be a priority, that I guess the activity looks like this versus actual staff to support classrooms.
So thank you for that question. There are a few things that I'll try to touch on that. So there is another priority that we have that I described where it's specific classroom based allocation in terms of FTE, and that's one of the larger ones that was in that slide that I described. But in terms of investing in staff capacity, it was one of the elements of the academic plan where we have to recruit and retain and train and develop our staff. So we want to make sure that the best staff are in front of our students at all times. And one of the ways to do that is to work on developing the staff that we have, as well as in complementing our recruitment efforts to provide a high quality workforce for our students.
Okay, I would then add, if that, you know, investing in staff capacity, that then perhaps there's some conversations and perhaps some training among just, and I'm going to say leadership in general, because it could be at any level. It could be a principal, an assistant principal. It could be at a chief level. It could be, you know, at your level, on how to better kind of work with our own staff to have a better appreciation for our own people, because that has come up quite a bit, where we don't appreciate some of our hardest working individuals. And if that could be somewhat weaved in there, because we end up, we do lose good people because they get frustrated. And, you know, someone just spoke tonight and said, I gave 12 years and I couldn't even have the decency of having a thoughtful process to how a different school was selected for me when I was bumped out of the program I've been working and dedicating 12 years of. And, you know, those things hit home for me, and I just feel like we constantly, even as board members, we get messages all the time from staff who, you know, are feeling some kind of way, feeling unappreciated. And if we're going to have this type of training, we also have to train to appreciate our own people. And then on page 18, the colors that are on this graph here, are they aligned with page 11's color? Because that's a little confusing. And this is a very colorful PowerPoint presentation. And I was trying to keep up, and I was like, ooh, this is a lot to put in a PowerPoint, and then use all these colors. And then you're saying these are the heat map colors, but I'm going to use it in the pie chart, and I'm going to use it in the overall fiscal progress. Like, I know there's more colors in the rainbow, but are the colors on page 18 aligned to the, I guess, key that you're saying is on page 11? For CARES, CRESA,
Not
ARP?
directly. So in this pie chart, we're trying to show the overall pie of money that's been allocated to the district and dividing it up colored that way. And we wanted to use colors to try and make sure that we're making this as accessible visually to our audience. So we take, of course, any type of constructive feedback to make this more clearer
I would just
for
ask
everyone.
that I mean, I'm not saying don't use colors. I'm saying don't say, hey, here's a key to identify CRESA, ARP, and then a few slides down, use the same colors in a pie chart. And then I'm like, okay, I see it says CRESA, but yeah, I was
understood.
Just change the colors a little bit. That's all I'm asking for.
Okay.
Page 20, I'm bringing in, I do have to talk about page 20 because I have heard that some staff members who have been on the hard line are being moved over short-term for CRESA to put their salaries and their benefits under CRESA. So I'm wondering if these numbers are being reflected here as saying, hey, we hired these FTEs, when in reality we just shifted them in the budget under CRESA dollars. And then in addition, I had asked before around our shortages in staff, and there was a presentation done saying we had a short amount of shortages. I don't know if our chief in human resources is sitting right next to you, if he remembers this, but it always stuck out to me because we said we had like 30, and I was like, 30? Like, during a pandemic, we should like show every school district how to only get to a very low number. But I'm wondering in these initiatives and the total amount of staff being hired, how that actually then aligns with what we know in terms of shortages. And then on that same slide is the district infrastructure improvements, and there's 6 FTEs, and I have no idea what that even means.
Absolutely. So I'll start with a few of them. I might have to ask Chris to help with some. But the district infrastructure improvement area has 3 categories of FTEs. So one is the director of placement, that we're bringing them in and immediately feeding that FTE under a CRESA allocation. The second one that we're doing is supporting IM&T with the help desk allocations that I mentioned. And then the last one is translators for communications so that we're more effectively able to support communications efforts in the district. And that's why it's currently colored as in progress, because all of those positions are being brought on very shortly.
So translations, the translations would be under that piece too then?
Yes.
I guess I would like us to figure out a different way to just word that so that we can understand what that means.
Okay.
Although I get that that's an overall infrastructure piece. The director of placement though, like that's an example of what I'm talking about. That was already a position.
Correct.
But we're using CRESA dollars, so and I know there have been other people, because there have been other people that reached out and said, hey, my position was moved under CRESA temporarily, and I understand that it'll be moved back to the budget when CRESA dollars are over. But are we counting those individuals in these FTEs? They were already here.
So I want to make sure that we make the distinction between individuals and individual staff and the actual role itself. So if we put a role in this funding source and it's associated with this funding source, that doesn't mean that that person is not going to have their job after the funding source is
I'm clear
over.
about that. And they were aware of that too.
Yeah.
They just, I'm not saying that. I'm asking, this is being presented like, hey, look at all the FTEs that are being initiated and hired with CRESA dollars.
Correct.
But are we counting people that already worked in the district and we're just moving their role under these funding temporarily?
So the director of placement,
you're counting him as 6 under here, but that position already existed.
well, it didn't, so there's a overlap here. So if you recall, we just recently had a retirement of the director of placement. And so we were trying to reimagine what that role would look like And the first thing that we did was associated with this particular funding source for now. So next year, when we're rolling out the budget, there will be a director of placement role that's built in the budget, but we wanted to get this immediately initiated. We already had a director of placement in the role that retired, and we were trying to get this budgeted immediately. So once again, it wasn't a person, it was where do we put this role so that we can get it up and lifted and get it up and running. And so putting it in Cursa allowed us to do that. It allowed us not to draw upon the general fund to do that, and we were able to get it up. We're hoping to do a few more envisioning with the roles of placement. And by doing this, it's giving us that flexibility immediately so that we can better conceptualize placement.
So, I'm sorry, President.
Let me just see if someone else has any other questions. Any other questions from any of the commissioners?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. Did you want to finish this line of questions?
Are you,
or-
I have two more. Just, I want to respond to what she
Okay.
just said, and then my last one, and then I'm done. But, so you're saying that we're talking about the role that's being moved over, but the slide presentation is called FTEs by initiative.
Correct.
So I'm talking about FTEs, and I'm saying, is it fair to add FTEs that already exist in the district that are just being moved over, however you want to word it, by their title, position, person, you don't want to count it as an individual, and count it as FTEs that are being hired and created under Cresta when they already existed or already here. That's it. And then the second piece is, and I've asked for this multiple times, I'm going to ask for it again, and I don't forget my request. I just want you all to know. I would like to, on the website, under ARP and every task force that exists in this district that are helping to guide and make decisions as you point to them, the task force for zone reconfiguration, the task force for this, to identify the community stakeholders. I no longer want to accept committee stakeholders or a task force anonymously. We have no idea who's helping guide these decisions. Are they from the community? What's their background? Are they parents? Are they students? We have no clue. And I've said this before, but I will not let this go. I am asking for names, and I'm asking that those names are public on our website for the community to also understand who's helping drive these decisions. And that's all. Thank you, President Elliott.
Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you, President Elliott. Just a couple of questions. I was looking at priority 1 under rigorous academics. I see CTE program expansion, which I'm particularly excited about. Just wondering if does that information lie somewhere, or can you give me a brief understanding of what that program expansion looks like? Is this across all school communities, or what do those details look like?
So for the details of that, there's a lot of information in this plan and in the purple plan that's online, but either I would put my colleague on the spot, or we can put it in the question log. So.
Good evening, Commissioners. The CTE expansion in its first inception refers to the addition of 2 work-based learning coordinators to support the expansion of work-based learning across the district. Beyond that, it goes to adding resources and materials to support our existing pathways, the expansion of additional pathways, and the addition of resources inclusive of potential vehicles to support work-based instruction and athletic deployment. So that is the CTE expansion that's included in our stimulus fund dollars.
Okay. And then I was looking at priority 6, where we talked about, I think it was in priority 6. Basically, there's going to be an evaluation of programs and the return on investment.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering if the programs do they have a criteria that they're going to be responding to, or they know how they're being measured, and making sure that they, have that? Okay.
Yes, so for this grant, especially a grant of this scale, identifying the measurable objectives for each initiative was something that was clarified prior to approval. So everything has measurable objectives. We've also brought on a very robust evaluation team to work on evaluating the grant initiatives as we go through this process. And we won't necessarily have any data to report regarding progress right now, but by the next quarter, we should have some measurable data to tell us about progress. We are contracting with external evaluators to do more large-scale evaluations of some of the impact of the funds that we're bringing on board. But we've also built up our psychometric arm downstairs in the accountability department that's both associated with grants and with accountability so that they can handle more of the small scale capacity for evaluation, and also build that capacity in district so that we have the ability to do more evaluations within the district of other things that are not necessarily just grant dedicated, but this is building our ability to do large and small scale evaluation cycles.
Thank you.
Commissioner Malloy, do you have any questions? Commissioner Patterson, do you have any questions? Commissioner Powell?
Yeah, on the single slide-on zone reconfiguration, any of the old-timers here will recall that I always ask for 3 courses of action, and one of them can be do nothing. It looks like in this case you've chosen to do nothing, but even a do nothing outcome needs to be data driven, and I look forward on February 3rd to seeing what was being considered and why those other alternatives were were discarded. So I do look forward to February 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Powell. Dr. Jallo, you have a question?
Yeah, I just really want to make a comment that I hope that the next time that we have a report, the specificity is there. If you're saying you're having college visits for students from which school, how many kids, you know, if you're saying you're having a CTE program, is it medical science, is it automotive, is it cybersecurity, and where is it, how many students?
We can do that.
I think that specificity makes people feel a little more comfortable, hopefully, when they hear the dollar amounts associated, and they can link it to something quantitative as to a number of children impacted or a number of schools being impacted. So I hope that that comes in the future.
That's a great point. Thank you. We appreciate that feedback.
And my question has to do with, and it's not a question, is that you've said that we're going to place the director of placement position within these dollars, and that's one of the things that we talked about. If that position is placed in those dollars, that means that that position is going away.
So we're only putting the position in here as a temporary funding placeholder.
But why is that being done?
Because we already had a position that had been put in the budget for the previous director. So this would make it look on paper like we had more than one. We were trying to bring them in, and we were trying to find a place to kind of put it, and also do some reconceptualization of the department at the same time, which we're still doing.
And that couldn't be done with the current budget funding?
We would have had to have gone into the general fund, and we were trying not to touch that.
I guess my concern is that these dollars are going to be going away.
Correct.
And then what I'm hearing is that we're placing positions in these fundings that are permanent positions, and that's somewhat it confuses me that we're doing that when I was under the impression that we were not going to do that, particularly with positions or resources that we have currently in our budget. So I'm a little concerned about that. I just need to let you know, because now it's going to lead me to suspicion. What else is going to be coming into these funds that we've said previously were not going to be, because these funds are going to be eventually going away.
So we can provide greater detail, like in a Friday letter or something like that, and then also circle back in board officers.
Correct.
To start.
Okay, so let me just ask this: are there other positions that are in the current budget, but that are we're going to be using these dollars for? Because then that's going to be confusing. I want to know that up front. Are there any other positions or resources that we currently have in our regular budget that you all are going to move over into these source of funds?
So there are several elements of the budgetary items in CURSA that were moved to alleviate the pressure on the general fund. And so those things are temporary movements along the budget. They're not going to stay there permanently. For example, subs, when we're getting subs, we're not going to always draw upon subs from CURSA and therefore not pull subs from general fund once CURSA is done. So if we're going to get subs right now, we're going to get subs, but we're still going to need subs 3 or 4 years from now. We're not going to stop looking for subs after 3 or 4 years. So that's something that is being funded right now through CURSA. However, in 3 to 4 years, we're still going to need substitute teachers, substitute aides, et cetera. And that's something that right now is being allocated through CURSA, but it will continue as we move forward. It may not be that particular staff member, but we will need temporary staff moving forward.
It concerns me because I just heard the CFO mention tonight that we still have a structural deficit. And so if we still have a structural deficit, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just going to put it out there. It just seems that we're not addressing the issue of the structural deficit, but that we have these other funds and that we're focused in on these funds. And I don't hear, you know, any conversation around the structural deficit and how we address that. But I'm hearing, you know, sort of these Band-Aid approaches about moving the directive placement, for an example, into the CSRSA funding. So that's a concern for me. And then, you know, we've got our whole budget process coming up, you know, very soon. And so all of this concerns me about the structural deficit, and then we're moving people from, you know, so that there's not that kind of impact on the budget into the CSRSA funding, but still, we got to address the structural deficit, and I don't hear that in these conversations. I just sort of, it almost, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost as if we, you know, sort of cast that aside, and that has to be part of this conversation, even with these additional dollars that we have received. So
Correct.
I'll just put it out there, and you'll probably hear that from me more than once, you know, because we gotta address that structural issue, you know, because these funds are not going to, they're not permanent.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item of agenda, let me just get there. I think I may have closed myself out. Let me look at your calendar. You got it? I think I closed myself out by mistake. So the next.
Resolutions.
Yep. All right. So let me get in that so that I can.
It's the consent agenda item for resolutions, which is up next.
We didn't understand what you said, Charisma.
I'm Up next is the consideration of resolutions as the
Yeah.
consent agenda items.
I closed myself out by mistake, so I got to get back there.
Do you want to just read mine?
No, I can't see it.
Oh.
Okay. My apologies for that. So we're going on to the approval of consideration of resolutions. We have a consent agenda of resolutions. They are Resolution 378, 379, 380, 381, 382, 384, 385, 386, 387. 378 through 387, except for 383. So can I get a motion for consideration of these resolutions?
Motion.
Okay, we've got a motion from Vice President LeBron and a second from Commissioner Malloy. Are there any questions on any of these resolutions? Vice President LeBron?
Yeah, I do. And these are actually around final payments, and just noticing, and I went back for a couple of final payments. And I don't know how we address this, but I just want to put it out there, and I'm not necessarily seeking an answer tonight. But I noticed that some of the language, if you look back, some of these resolutions were passed, you know, in previous years, but we're wrapping up the work and it may have gone over a little bit because obviously, you know, sometimes you get a quote, you go in and things change. But all of these final payments are over the qualified bidder. So they were like the lowest qualified bidder for a total amount. And then by the time we get to final payments, they're more than what was actually bidded. And I'm wondering if, they're all like that. And so I went back to look at other final payments, and I don't even know if there's a time when it's all within the actual total contract price that it was bidded on. They're all over what the original contract was awarded for and voted on by the board in agreement. So I just want to highlight that. Again, I'm not seeking answers tonight, but this is something that I definitely feel that the board should explore, because if we're giving a bidder a contract to someone who's bidding based on it being the lowest possible price of all the bidders that are there, and the end result is that we're still paying more money at the end, I have some questions around that, especially when it's consistently coming back that way. And what we're doing to mitigate those costs so that this is a maximum number and we don't end up with these types of situations. So I just want to put it out there, put the plug in for now. Will be looking at this through finance in the next couple of months, but I just want to bring it all to your attention as you move forward and look at these type of final payment resolutions. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Vice President LeBron. Any other questions on these resolutions? If there's no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll wait we have to vote for each one individual, is that correct?
No, not for these.
No, on the.
No, not the consent agenda.
No, not for the consent agenda items.
No, I'm talking about on this, on the screen. No. Do we, okay, all right,
Because she just bundled them.
okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. So we have consideration for individual resolutions. Can I get a motion for Resolution 383?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on Resolution 383? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Can I get a motion for Resolution, we got to vote on it, right? Yep. Okay.
Yes. Also, when someone motions, one of the commissioners, do you mind President Elliott letting, saying it out loud who had a motion,
I
so
sure
that way
will.
Kalia knows?
Yes.
Thank you.
Will do. Okay. Can I get a motion for Resolution 402?
Second.
So that was Commissioner Powell who motioned and Vice President LeBron who's second. Any discussion on Resolution 402? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Can I get a motion for Resolution 403?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on Resolution 403?
I'm so sorry, everyone. If we could just go a little bit slower, because I'm still waiting on people to vote electronically on 403.
All right.
Oh.
Thank you.
Are you going to let us know when everybody's voted?
Yes, everyone has voted. Now we can go ahead with 403.
All right. So did I get a motion for that? Did we do?
Yes, I believe it was Powell and Vice President.
All right. Any
LeBron.
discussion on Resolution 403?
I made the motion, by the way, for 403.
And I
Okay.
second it.
So Kalia, did you get that? The Commissioner Malloy made the motion?
Yes, and
All right.
Commissioner LeBron. Thank you.
Can I get a motion for Resolution 404?
Motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on Resolution 404? Oh, did you hear, Kalia, that it was?
No, I missed that one. I was still collecting.
All right.
If you just tell me who motioned, I got the second.
Commissioner LeBron motion and Vice President LeBron motion, Commissioner Malloy second.
Thank you. Okay.
Any discussion on Resolution 404? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Can I get a motion for Resolution 413?
Motion.
So moved.
Kalia, that was Vice President LeBron who motioned, and Commissioner Malloy second.
Thank you.
All right. Any discussion on Resolution 413? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Can I get a motion for Resolution 412?
So moved.
Motion. Oh, I'll second.
So that was Commissioner Malloy who motioned and Vice President LeBron who second.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor of resolution,
Oh, I have a question.
is it 412 or 413?
412. I mean, yeah, it was out of order.
We're at 412.
We're at 412.
All right, thank
I
you.
just also want to remind that for time for questions, we're forgetting to allow for questions.
I have a question.
Yep. Commissioner, Vice President LeBron?
Yeah, so I didn't want to bring this into executive session because I think I can ask my question without singling out any particular individual, because this is not about the individuals, but more so really a style of different chiefs and how they summarize this action form. In year 1 score, year 2 score, year 3 score, year 4 score, some of them actually have developing, effective, highly effective, right? Just as an example of one here. And the others, year 3 is highlighted as COVID, and then in other forms, the year is actually spelled out. So this is what year 1 was. It was 2018, 2019. Year 2 was 2019, 2020 was COVID. But the other ones for the 10-year date action form, there are some that have the date and list the corresponding evaluation summary of where that individual landed on. And there are some that do not, but then also have COVID. And then there are some that I have no idea where year 1 through 4 would be for this individual. So I guess my ask is, why is that not all consistent? And then 2, if it could be consistent, I do like that the year is associated with year 1 score, and it spells out what year that was and what that staff person's summary evaluation was.
We can work to ensure that there's consistency on that. I would share that we also provide that Excel file that is all the same and detailed, but we can work on that as well on those covers.
Yeah, if you're going to provide this too, then as a summary, then yeah. That's all. Thank you. That's all.
All right. Any other questions on Resolution 412? No further questions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Kalia, you have that?
Still waiting on a few people to
Okay.
select their vote. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, I've been asked that we vote on Resolution 388 before we can vote on Resolution 389 and 390. Want to explain that? I think the only reason is that because these are out of order right now. Cal, you want to give, or Mike want to give some explanation to why we need to vote on 388?
Yes, I will allow Chief Schmidt to provide an update. I understand that the agreement, which is 388, if you look at item number Z, needs to be approved by the board before any additional pay is considered related to that contract. So, Mr.
Nick? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say, Kelly said it very eloquently. That's
Okay.
the contract first, and then the trainers, and then the people being trained.
Okay, so that's what that is, all right.
Yes.
Any questions to Mike on that, regarding that? Okay, so can I get a motion for Resolution 388, and that's letter Z?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, second by Commissioner Simmons. Cal, you got that? Commissioner Patterson?
Sorry about that. I was muted. Yes, I got that.
Commissioner? All right, we may just have to, yeah, all right.
I'm sorry, I can't hear Commissioner Powell.
She said Commissioner Patterson had to use the bathroom and he thought it was going to be a longer conversation. Thank you. So we're just going to vote and keep things moving.
Is he absent at the vote?
He is not in for the vote.
Yeah.
Okay, I will just mark him as not present at the vote at the current moment.
Right.
Thank you, Board Clerk.
All right, so all in favor of Resolution 388?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So we'll get the voting box for that?
Already completed.
Oh, we did? Okay, all right. So then let's go back to Resolution 389. And that is letter G. Can I get a motion for Resolution 389?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
So Commissioner Malloy made the motion, Vice President LeBron second.
Correct, thank you.
All right, any discussion on Resolution 389? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll wait for the voting box.
Is Commissioner Patterson is still out
He
for the
just
vote?
came in.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so we have all of the votes for 389?
That is correct, yes.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion for Resolution 390?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on Resolution 390? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor for Resolution 390?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Can I get a motion for Resolution 391?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Can I get a second? Seconded by Commissioner Patterson. Does that hear you, Commissioner Patterson? All right, all right. Any discussion on Resolution 391? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Kyle,
Just
you
wait.
got the vote?
Just waiting on two more folks to take vote.
Okay.
Commissioner Powell, thank you. All set.
Thank you. A motion for Resolution 393.
Motion.
Can I get a motion moved by Commissioner Malloy? Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on Resolution 393? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. A motion for Resolution 394.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy and seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on Resolution 394? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Waiting on a few more commissioners.
Okay,
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. Can I get a motion for Resolution 395?
So moved.
A motion by Vice President LeBron. Can I get a second? Is that a second for you, Commissioner Malloy?
Yes,
Second
please.
from
Second.
Commissioner Malloy. Any discussion on Resolution 395? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Just waiting for the vote, Kalia.
Waiting on two more commissioners.
Okay.
Commissioner Powell. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for Resolution 396?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on Resolution 396? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Waiting for the voting box. What is that called, Kalia? What's the official name for that?
That's the scoreboard.
Scoreboard, all right. Thank you. Can I get a motion for Resolution 392?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Is there any discussion on Resolution 392? Hear no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we look for the scoreboard or the score box?
The score box. I'm recording on the scoreboard.
Okay.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you, Kalia. Can I get a motion for Resolution 397?
Motion.
Oh, second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on Resolution 397? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Score box is up.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Can I get a motion for Resolution 401?
So moved.
Commissioner Malloy moved, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on Resolution 401? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So wait for the score box. There we go.
Still waiting on two more commissioners. I'm waiting on Commissioner Malloy and Powell. Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Kalia. Can I get a motion for Resolution 406?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Simmons. Any discussion on Resolution 406? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion passes. Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. Can I get a motion on Resolution 399?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Can I get a second? Oh, Commissioner Simmons, seconded.
Thank you.
Any discussion on Resolution 399? Vice President LeBron?
Yeah, I am actually gonna just submit my questions. I feel like I've exhausted the topic of moving hard lines into the crested dollars. So any additional questions, I will submit to the board question log for our CFO. So I just want to give you a heads up.
Any other questions on Resolution 399? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll wait for the score box.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right. Did we all vote in the score box for 399, Kalia?
Yes, we did.
All right.
It was a 6-0.
All right. Thank you. Can I get a motion for Resolution 407?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Moved by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on Resolution 407? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Waiting on 3 more commissioners. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I get a motion for Resolution 408?
Motion.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any questions on Resolution 408? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Cal. Yeah, can I get a motion on Resolution 409?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Simmons. Any discussion on Resolution 409? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
All right.
I'm tired. I gotta wake up. I wanna be like, no.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Cal. Yeah, can I get a motion for Resolution 410?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on Resolution 410?
Yeah, actually, I just want to address the TBDs and resolutions. I absolutely hate TBDs and to be determined, although I do appreciate that summer school planning is, at least, I don't know. I just want to put that out there, and I'm getting really tired, but we should not be voting on resolutions that have TBD. And I know I just voted on one. I'm not going to vote on this one. I just voted on one because I just missed it, but we should not be voting on TBD resolutions. And we have told this administration this already before in this last year. I just want to remind them there has to be a way. And I don't even know other school boards that allow TBDs to go and happen in a resolution. So,
Commissioner LeBron?
Yep.
All right, the verbal vote has not passed. Are you trying to vote no?
Yeah, but I just voted on a resolution that had a TBD. And I
Okay.
wasn't, we were past the conversation, so I just let it go. But
Okay.
I'm gonna not support this, Board Clerk. But I also want my other colleagues and the administration to understand why, and also just highlight that we should not be accepting board resolutions that say to be determined.
So why are
Thank
they
you.
brought to us like this? Can Madam Superintendent have someone to explain why are we being presented with these that say TBD?
So the TBD resolutions that you're reviewing this evening all represent the previous the summer school planning. So because we have to put resolutions before you all between 6 and 8 weeks for our process, it doesn't allow for us to hire and put names forward in a timely fashion to plan. So these resolutions that all have TBD for summer programming allows us to identify the positions and then do the appropriate recruitment, selection, and hiring of the appropriate folks to then move forward. And so the timelines at this point don't allow that, which is why you're seeing the resolutions for all summer planning to allow for our staffing to have the positions to be filled.
So when can we expect that those positions are going to be filled?
So we will be doing staffing processes through March and April to be able to have people then prepare to launch programs in July.
All right, thank you. Oh, Vice President LeBron?
Thank you. When we get other resolutions with individuals who have been identified, we do get the opportunity to go into executive session if there are concerns about the individuals. By doing it this way, we're also essentially giving you a blank check, if you will, a ticket to go and hire whoever you want and put whoever you want. It wouldn't even come to us again because you already got the approval tonight. And so again, I'm going to ask the board, I hear what you're saying, that you're going to have to figure out a timeline to make it add up and align. With every other position, as people are hired or identified, that's how resolutions come before us. So, I hear your explanation. I won't accept your explanation, but I thank you for providing an explanation. So I will not be supporting this one. And I regret that I voted on the other one, but I'm going to move past it and just vote no on this one. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. And I'm a nay.
Yeah. Any
I'm a
opposed?
nay as well.
Commissioner Malloy, you're a nay as well? Okay.
Yes.
You can change your vote. Right now, it says yes.
All right. So-
Commissioner LeBron, yours also says yes. Thank you. All right.
Yep, I just changed it. Thank you.
President Elliott, you have not voted.
Yep, I'm going with yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes 4-2.
All right, so that was resolution 410.
410.
All right. Can I get a motion for resolution 414?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Any questions on resolution 414? Hearing no questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have one nay.
Commissioner Powell, waiting on your vote. Motion passes 5-1.
All right. Can I get a motion for resolution 416?
So moved.
You moved it, Commissioner Malloy?
Yes.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Can I get a second on resolution 416?
Yes, second.
Seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Any discussion on resolution 416? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion passes.
Thank you, Calia. Can I get a motion for resolution 415?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on resolution 415? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, resolution 415? Just waiting
sec-
on the
Just bringing up the
score
vote now.
box. Almost done with resolutions, that is.
Waiting on Commissioner Simmons and Powell.
Okay,
Motion passes 6-0.
thank you. So we already voted on resolution 388. Can I get a motion for resolution 398?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Can I get a
Second.
second? Second by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on resolution 398? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed to resolution 398? Okay,
Motion passes 6-0.
thank you. Can I get a motion for resolution 405?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Simmons. Any discussion on resolution 405? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed to resolution 405?
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Resolution for, motion for resolution 411.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any questions on resolution 411? Vice President LeBron?
Yeah, I just want to uplift this, that, you know, we're being asked by the county to go into this agreement with Walgreens as a reimbursement. So essentially, we're going to incur the cost first, and then the county will reimburse us after we submit that cost to the county. I've already expressed my concerns around that to the administration, and it's my understanding that the requirement or request, if you will, to do it this way is coming from the county. But if anybody's ever worked with the county, actually getting reimbursed by the county is a really lengthy process, and there's no guarantee that it's even going to be within our own budget year this year. So I think we incur a risk in doing this, especially when we're talking about $2 million and we're going through the budget process. We could be reimbursed for this next year, like outside of this budget year. So I am going to request back through the county and meet with probably Versha Roman and Adam Bello and maybe even Rachel, to have some conversations around the county agreeing to pay directly. They should be paying directly. We shouldn't even be the middle people of like putting up money and then billing them. There's no guarantee that they're going to even reimburse us back, like I said, within a reasonable time frame. So I'm not comfortable with us taking this risk, but we also do need to provide opportunities for our staff and families to go and get tested and go to Walgreens. So I don't want to hold it up. So I'm going to support this tonight, but I am going to be pushing that the county actually takes on the responsibility of paying directly to Walgreens so that we're out of it. And that's my hope and goal.
Appreciate that advocacy.
Oh, absolutely. We're not going to be taking that on. But I just want you all to know that this is what this is about, this resolution here, and what the risks are associated with it. But it's necessary for our staff and families.
Thank you, Vice President LeBron. Commissioner Powell?
So, just a procedural thing here. I don't have an objection to that proposal, but typically it's our board president that acts on behalf of the full board. And so if we're going to have a different representative, that's something that the board should be either by a consensus vote or just as a, we ought to be weighing in on that. And so let me start off by putting a motion on the table to, for the board to authorize Vice President LeBron to speak to the county on behalf of the board.
Well, let me just say this. We've got a motion on the floor already for 11. And so we need to
finish that out.
Finish this out.
So if you'll make room at.
Well, can I just want to respond to that because I don't think a motion is necessary. I guess perhaps it's not clear to the board. I don't move without President Elliott. I just want to be clear. She and I also have standing weekly meetings. We have lots of conversations. She was out of town, and this came up in my financial preview. And so I did let the administration know. But when that meeting is scheduled, it will be in collaboration with my president and our board president. And we don't move.
Well, let me just say, if that's what, but let me just say this, if that's what you feel comfortable, let's have a conversation about it, but let's go through.
Okay, yeah, let's have the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, let's do the 411. So we've got a motion. Commissioner Malloy, you moved it, and Vice President LeBron, you second. Any other discussion on Resolution 411? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed to Resolution 411?
Shoot. Keeping the wrong button.
Waiting on the score box.
My apologies, I was muted. The motion passes 6-0.
All right, thank you. And so is it appropriate, Adrian, to have that conversation at this point in the agenda, General Counsel? What we're trying to do, Commissioner.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Commissioner Powers, please explain it.
So the discussion we were having while Resolution 411 was still open is, according to our bylaws, it's our board president is our spokesperson unless otherwise designated. And while I appreciate the conversation that Vice President LeBron brought after that, after I raised the issue, the concern is the way it was framed was that Vice President LeBron, would be the one engaged in conversation with the county. If that is the case, then the board should be weighing in and explicitly giving her the authority to have those conversations. That's all I'm saying.
And then, Adrian, just so you're aware that my response is, I schedule lots of meetings for President Elliott and I to go and meet with folks and have conversations. And she does the same, so we're just kind of tag teaming. We also meet every week one-on-one, she and I. we have our own agendas to go over, make sure we're covering topics, also discussing who we're going to be meeting with, but we work as a team. And so I appreciate what the bylaw says. That meeting would not happen without President Elliott there. And so I'm saying there's actually no need to motion. She would be a part of the meeting, and it would be based on she and I's schedule. That's just how we're operating as a team.
Yeah, any other conversations about
Well,
it?
I do want to follow up on this because, again, it's about the way that the conversation was framed. And we all need to be clear on what authority our bylaws attribute to each of the roles. If President Elliott is going to be at the meetings, then she is our spokesperson. She represents us as a board. Certainly, of course, no commitments can be made anyway without, if they were financial in nature, but I do want us to be clear about what the roles and responsibilities of each position are as they're spelled out in the bylaws, and I don't want the previous conversation about where Vice President LeBron used the first person. He said, I will, to take us down a road that implies that the vice president role has more authority than what is actually granted in the bylaws.
May I weigh in, President Elliott?
Excuse me if I can make a comment. So the bylaws do say the president acts as the official representative of the board. However, I think this is new business, and this conversation is best set for maybe governance agenda, and then the board can set it on the agenda and discuss and decide that. But the board does get to decide. For example, we have designate representatives to schools. So the board as a body can decide representatives for, varying purposes.
Thank you. I certainly accept that interpretation. I just.
But I do appreciate what you've just noted, and to Vice President LeBron's comments. We do work we do work together on various matters. So, and she knows that I am the president. So, we do work together. But thank you for that, Commissioner Powell. Any other comments?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment. Just looking at history, I think, do we know who President Elliott is? Because President Elliott, I think she will speak up if she has a concern. So I just wanted to express that I think the confidence is there. I don't think there's any rogue situation taking place. So I have all the confidence that we'll be represented properly, and that if something is out of order or out of line, that will be addressed accordingly.
But I appreciate those remarks, Commissioner Powell, because we do need to be adhering to making sure that we are adhering to our bylaws, and so thank you for that. But let me just also say, I have enjoyed working with Commissioner LeBron. She has the energy, she has the, she has the commitment, and she has the love for this community and that kind of passion, and I just really do appreciate that. Yeah. So I got kicked out, so I'm going to try to get back on here.
That is okay. I understand that several people have lost power on the dais, which is concerning. As everything is hardwired into the system. And so in lieu of technical difficulties, if you could just verbalize your vote, I will take the vote manually. Thank you.
But we can't even pull up the...
Oh, you can't view your resolutions.
It seems like I'm able to come up.
Mine is not. Mine is restarting and doing something. President Elliott has hers up, yeah.
Okay.
Is that just on the dais? Because I can see mine.
Yes, I think it's just the dais, the devices.
A row of us.
All right, so we're down to, I believe, resolution. Did we vote on resolution 411, Kalia?
You did. So you just have two more resolutions, an agreement with Monroe County and the system appeals.
All right. So, did someone move 400, or that's the one we've got?
Not yet.
No,
All
no,
right.
not yet.
So, thank you. So can I get a motion for Resolution 400?
So moved.
Second? Can I get a second for Resolution 400? A second for 400? Commissioner Patterson, second. Kalia, not Kalia. Commissioner Malloy moved the motion, moved it. Resolution 400. Any questions about Resolution 400? Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our last resolution, can I get a motion for Resolution 417?
So moved.
May I get a second? Moved by Commissioner Malloy, can I get a second?
Second.
Moved by, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any discussion on Resolution 417? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we are done with the resolutions. They are concluded. We're going to go down to new business, and I'm going to turn that over to Commissioner Powell. We've already voted on the calendar, and turn it over to Commissioner Powell to talk about B, C, and D of the agenda.
Okay.
Commissioner Powell?
Yes, thank you. The first readings are the items that just left the Policy Committee on January 4th. You'll see that they are, some of them were left over from previous conversations, the consultants to the board and the administration in policy absence. Those had been under discussion previously. There was some discussion, debate that sent it back or kept it in Policy Committee, but it is before you today. If there are any gladiators in our listening audience, the opportunity for comment will exist in next month's business meeting during the second reading. The remainder of this bundle are essentially goals-related policies. And I want to do a brief mea culpa. If you were to look at Policy 2000, there was some discussion at our Policy Committee about the way that some of the items are in the policy and some are as the exhibit. So the five of us, well, Commissioner Adams isn't in the meeting, but the five of us who were on the board 2 years ago, you may recall that we worked out the language of our responsibilities as board members, and they do go a little bit beyond the law insofar as they talk about our responsibility to work closely with the community, which is not an explicit requirement of the law in terms of our board responsibilities. So the language of 1 through 5 that's in Policy 2000 proposal is work that this board did 2 years ago, whereas the language in the exhibit started out 2 years ago, but then changed this past fall when we worked on our goals in retreat. So that's an example of how the goals will change from year to year, whereas some language will be more static. And I just wanted to call that out because I really made a mess of explaining it in our Policy Committee on January 4th. So if there are any questions or comments about this bundle, anything anyone wants to call out and discuss specifically, I'll facilitate that discussion. Hearing none.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Powell.
Oh, yes.
I apologize. I was pulling up 2280, and there's two versions, like the clean copy or the track changes.
Yep.
But the track changes on mine doesn't show any changes, and there's just that language again around the superintendent establishing procedures around effective working relationship among consultants and board and staff members. And again, I bring this up again that this particular policy is really referring to consultants that the board hires, Does your track changes show track changes or?
It appears that the track changes version is identical to the clean copy.
Okay.
I do recall the conversation we had in policy, and we did discuss dropping that last sentence. So between now and next month, I will make sure that the correct version.
Thank you.
Because, yes, what we agreed to by vote and consensus was to drop that sentence. So thank you for your attention to detail on that. Did you catch that, Charisma? Got a little bit of work to do. All right. Any other questions about this block? If not, I'll go on to the second readings. These will be voted on at our business meeting next month. They're in a zip file, I apologize. So there's 4 that were part of part 1, mostly no changes, and then there's the policy management policy, which needed some clarification to get into this first, second, and third readings. So are there any questions on this block, which we will be voting on next month? I'm not hearing any questions. Certainly, if something comes up, feel free to communicate that to me. Finally, under 12D, it's really part of the 12B first readings. The goals setting work that is captured in 12B essentially makes this policy 0200 obsolete, and so we would be moving forward with this as a vote to rescind this policy in 2 months' time. But again, it will also need a second reading next month. Okay?
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Can I get a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing information related to current or future investigation or prosecution of a criminal offense which would imperil effective law enforcement if disclosed, and matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person? Can I get a
Motion. Motion for that long motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Are we coming back out to vote for anything?
No.
Can we close the meeting then from here?
We need to do the board survey, but I'm thinking we're having computer problems. Would we be able to do the survey?
The survey is online. It's Google, so folks are able to just log back into their box and click the link. It will take them to a Google survey, which can be done on a personal device or anywhere.
All right, thank you, Kalia.
No problem.
Did we do the student suspensions?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Resolution. So thank you. We're going into executive session. Thank you, and we will adjourn from there. Thank you for joining us for our board meeting, and good night. We'll see you soon.